Recording in progress.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the November 18th, 2025 Lake County Board of County Commissioners meeting. We welcome you here. We're going to start our meeting today with an invocation given by Pastor John Carey, First Baptist Church of Umatilla. Then we'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity again. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we do thank you again for this day and this opportunity to join together to do the work that you've called us to do. I pray that throughout the meeting today that the decisions that are made would be glorifying to you, helpful to the citizens of Lake County, and for the betterment of the community in which we live. I thank you for this country and this nation and our leadership. I thank you for the leadership here at the county and our state and the great work that they're doing to protect our freedoms and to glorify your name on high. I thank you for your love. I thank you for Jesus. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor. All right. As far as updates to the agenda, Jennifer Barker, County Manager.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. First, tab 27, we updated a LAP agreement that was attached with a corrected signature page. Tab 28, there was a language update from east to west when referring to which side of State Road 19 the signs would go on. On tab 33, the year-end budget amendment spreadsheet was added. Tab 37, 38, and 39 were all added as an addendums to the regular agenda following the first publishing of the agenda.
All right. Moving ahead then to the Sales Surtax Oversight Committee presentation, Michael Rankin, the chairman of that group, is here to present their committee's findings.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission, the audience. For the record, Mike Rankin, the chairperson for the Sales Tax Oversight Advisory Committee. Commissioner Smith asked me to spend the next 3.5 hours to go line by line. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to tell you quickly that you'll recall this is a committee of 8, from the constitutional officers to the 2 from the commission, 2 from the school board, and then 2 from the cities. We review 14 cities as well as Lake County Board of County Commission and school board reports. In your packet, you'll see that full report. You'll also see comments that we had and response of those comments. So that's my report. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions?
No questions. Just a comment that thank you very much for everything you and the team does. I know it's thankless, but thank you very much.
11 years. I just finished that. So, yeah, thank you.
All right. Let's see. Do we need to vote and adopt and approve, or we just get the presentation? Okay. Minutes approval. Mr. Cooney isn't with us today, but Christy Mullane from the clerk's office is.
Thank you. We have 3 sets of minutes for your approval this morning.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Moving then to citizen question and comment period. Anyone who's joined our meeting through Zoom using their phone may press *9 virtually to raise their hands. Anyone participating through Zoom online, please click the raise hand button if you wish to speak. If you're in the audience, we have signature cards that have been filled out. These would be items on today's agenda, except for zoning items. And if it's an item that we're going to be discussing later in the meeting, then we'll call on those cards when we get to them. I see a couple of them maybe on consent. Let me see. I'll figure that out as we go. But first, on general comments, and you have 3 minutes, and then we'll have the timer go off, and we just ask that you conclude at that time. First speaker card is C.J. Blanchett.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is C.J. Blanchett,
I'm a business owner, property owner, member of the Constitution Party of Florida, and chairman of the Lake County chapter of the Constitution Party. I stand here for every citizen that firmly believes that our government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed, not from the comfort of elected officials or from political alliances, and certainly not from the disregard of the very people you swore an oath to serve. Over the past months, the citizens have watched a troubling pattern unfold, a pattern of disrespect, dismissiveness, and disregard toward the people of this county. Whether it's ignoring public comment, refusing to answer legitimate questions, breaking trust through backroom decisions, or choosing political expediency over constitutional responsibility, the message you have sent to us is unmistakable. You have forgotten who you work for. The Constitution, transparency, accountability, nor the respect for the people, your employers, is not optional. The county does not belong to bureaucrats, consultants, or developers with deep pockets. It belongs to the citizens, the homeowners, the taxpayers, the small business owners, the parents, the workers, and the families who built this community and who expect the representatives to uphold the oath they took. When commissioners silence the people, evade questions, or misuse their positions, they violate not only their office, they violate the trust of every resident who believed their voice mattered. So let me be very clear. The citizens will not be treated as your subjects any longer. Today we issue a simple, fair, and constitutional demand. Acknowledge your failures, apologize to the people of the county, and commit clearly and publicly to honoring your constitutional duties going forward. Restore transparency, accountability, respect, and integrity, or resign before you are unseated by the very citizens whose trust you have broken. A government that refuses to listen will inevitably be replaced. A government that disrespects the people will be held accountable. And a government that forgets the Constitution will answer to those who have not forgotten it. The citizens of this county are organized, informed, and finally united. We are committed to lawful constitutional action. We will petition, organize, vote, and we will restore proper government by the people and for the people. The consequences of that choice belong to the people, although the path forward is yours. Do right by us, or please step aside. Either way, accountability is coming. In God, for freedom. Thank you.
Do we have anyone online? No? Okay. All right. Let's see. Catherine Wright?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Catherine Wright. Do I say my address and everything? No. Okay, sorry. Kind of new at this. I'm here to express my concerns about a proposed development adjacent to Lake Griffin and Highway 441 in Leesburg. This development started as an upscale RV park with what was probably better drainage, but it's now being proposed into a multi-level, multi-family apartments with 2 to 4 stories, boathouse, boat docks, restaurants, and other business spaces that will require a lot of parking and can be over 500 spaces of blacktop. Where is the water going to go from a hard rain or a hurricane? Because they will have to bring in fill. How much and how high will they have to go? This development can flood a park and some nearby residents called Brittany Estates, which is a 55 and above community, along with our other neighbors in Highway 441. Highway 441 being flooded is not a great thing. This will also have a negative impact on Lake Griffin with runoff and will deteriorate and harm the wildlife such as the birds and the manatees. Highway 441 is already a challenging road, especially to go left. Honestly, I feel like I'm playing Frogger every time I try. Can you imagine a school bus trying to pull out onto a 441 from this apartment complex that is going to be proposed to the city of Leesburg? It requires a person to turn right, cross over multiple lanes, to then make a U-turn And if there is an accident, it could take 45 minutes just to pull out of Brittany Estates to get onto the highway of 441. Adding this development will make it even more difficult to enjoy all surroundings and maintain a quality of life. I urge you to please assist in any way to put a pause on these types of developments that can cause flooding and damaging to our fragile area. We need to come together and prioritize the well-being of our community and the environment. I thank you for your time. I know this is not the city of Leesburg, but these developments are getting rather out of hand. And they really are putting some sort of a, push on people that have the capability to move and they're 55 and above, and most of them are over 70 or 80. And flooding is not fun. So appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to our consent agenda, and then I see we have two cards that are items that are on the consent agenda, 6 and 18. So I think what I'll do is anyone going to pull items off the consent? Okay, so we'll hear from these two comments.
Approve the consent agenda first and then minus those tabs,
If you want to make a motion that way, and then we can hear the comments and decide from there.
and it goes for the regular agenda item.
So it's 6 and 18 it'd be less 6 and 18.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6 and 18.
All right.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. Let's pick up the clerk of courts consent agenda first on tab 3.
Sure. Christine Mullane, again, for the clerk's office. We request approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, now picking back up with items 6 first, I have a card for Dave Williamson, and this is on the advertisement of the ordinance establishing a municipal service taxing unit for the unincorporated area of Lake County to provide for law enforcement services through the Lake County Sheriff's Office.
Good morning. My name is David Williamson, candidate for County Commissioner, District 4, 2026. My address is 41634 Ray Heron Lane, Umatilla, Florida, 32784. My whole life, native Lake County resident, always been in that rural area of Lake County, always been in Umatilla, apart from off for college for a few years. Having even an idea of establishing extra taxes, as many of us have fought that, just doesn't even make sense. The county sheriff's office is for the county. Municipalities and cities have their own departments. I know that the county gets called on a lot, but the county is set there for these rural areas. So to put a tax on these more rural areas, just, it doesn't make sense. And I'm totally against it. And I think a lot of our citizens are against yet another tax that could get passed. So I just ask that you think about this before you go and place a tax. It just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. Thank you.
And I would like to address it just so there's a better understanding of what the discussion is and what the item is. The county, the sheriff provides services to both city and county residents. And currently, that comes under the general fund, and that's on our millage rate. There has been a request to bifurcate those services that the county provides only to unincorporated residents, so that people that live inside the cities aren't paying for services that the sheriff is providing in only the unincorporated area. So there are certain things that the sheriff does that are countywide. He runs the jail. He does homicide investigations. There's a whole variety of things that are considered to be countywide. Everybody, whether you're in the city or the unincorporated area, you get the benefit of those services, including mutual aid, which is where the county sheriff runs calls for the city police, or the city police run calls for the sheriff. But this particular item is about pulling out those things that are only in the unincorporated area. And the argument has been by the city residents is that it's double taxation. So it's not about putting a new tax in place, it's about carving out those services that are only in the unincorporated area and having those separated out. So that, just to give a better overview, it's not about adding a tax, it's about separating a portion of the tax that now comes under the general fund so that county residents know, here's what we're paying for just our unincorporated services, and city residents know we're not paying for the sheriff to run calls in the unincorporated area. Just like I'm a county resident and unincorporated residents, I don't want to be paying for calls that the city of Eustis runs inside the city of Eustis. So that's the basis for it, and this is just an advertisement. So we will have a public hearing on this at the next December 2nd. So, but appreciate your comments. Do we have a motion to proceed? Do we have any further discussion? Does anybody want to pull this and move forward?
It's my understanding that this MSTU, if the MSTU is approved, of course, we've got to read the whole thing, but if the MSTU is approved, then our millage rate would go down proportionately.
Are you a city resident?
I am.
Yeah. So yours
Yeah,
arguably
but the county millage rate would go down proportionally to the MSTU, basically.
By whatever, if the board chooses to reduce the general fund millage by a
Correct.
like dollar value that is attributed to only the unincorporated residents and applied to the new MSTU, that's what we would do.
Correct.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be a tax increase, it'd be just here's a line item, more of a line item detail than anything else.
Correct.
So if you added the two together, you would
Make-
get what we have today.
Make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, to advertise for second, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate to sound like a slow learner, but I definitely need to.
Yeah, we need to advertise
I
it
mean,
and then
but
look, well, the reason why I made the motion to approve is so we can get the whole documentation down. Right now, we
Yeah,
just
no,
have a
just
little
to
bit.
advertise.
But I guess I'm jumping the gun here. I just mean to say, when this does come back up and we actually have the merits discussion, I just want to study it a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth more study because when this first came up a couple years ago, several years back, the idea was to actually pull out the sheriff's millage altogether so that when you looked at your tax bill, you could see, all right, here's what I'm paying for the jail, here's what I'm paying for the sheriff, and it wouldn't be all wrapped into the county, the millage, general fund. But over the course of studying this and getting the legal opinions on it, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So all you could do was pull out the part that's just for the unincorporated area and separate that out. And we had been, those advocating for this were using Marion County as an example, saying, okay, this is what they do in Marion County. Well, Marion County only has a few cities compared to our 14 cities. And so it's a really different scenario because so much of it is unincorporated. And so a big part of the sheriff's budget comes from his MSTU. So anyway, so yeah, there's a lot, I think, to take into consideration between now and when we would actually take the vote on the ordinance itself.
Yeah, and again, just to advertise, and I think we'll know even more, as we all know, the talk at the state is to, reduce or get rid of homestead, property taxes, the big effect from that. So it'd be interesting, but yet the claim is that it will not affect public safety. So it'll be interesting if this is set aside, then it wouldn't affect that public safety, and maybe, I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out. There's all different kinds of proposals we're hearing about now for property taxes, right? But
Right, but it would still be on the millage for,
yeah,
somebody's homestead. So even if you did this, if they pull out like homestead properties or whatever, yeah,
Yeah, I'm just interested to see what if the claim is that it won't, this homestead will not affect public safety, but so much of as I think everybody in the room knows, so much of really the Sheriff's Department and Public Safety, and just in general, is 65% property taxes. So, it'll just be interesting to see how this goes, but all the more reason just to advertise and get the discussion going.
All right, so we have a motion, a second, and Jennifer?
I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarification too. So this is to create the MSTU, and the public hearing will be to create the MSTU. There will not be a lot of detail at the public hearing just to create it. If you want to create a new MSTU to be available for the tax roll for the following tax year, it has to be created by December 31st. So that's just creating the MSTU. Even if it's a zero and we do nothing with it, at least it's created. However, we are in the process, after board direction, of a study. We have a consultant that is performing a study to determine exactly what portion of the sheriff's budget is for unincorporated residents only. And for the most part, it's road patrol. There is some percentage of road patrol services that are provided to the cities. However, a majority of the road patrol only is attributed to only the unincorporated areas. So the consultant is currently going through the budgets, going through call data with the sheriff's office cooperation to determine where that split is and what should be attributed to the new MSTU, if anything.
Okay. All right, so we have a first and second. This is an approval to advertise. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then moving to tab 18. Before I get public comment, could I just get a brief overview by staff on this? This is the Forest Hills old volunteer fire station that has been being used by a nonprofit in that area that does
Yes.
community service.
So, yes, this is a very old building that was many years ago a volunteer fire department. It has been used as a community center for the folks in the Lake Mac neighborhood. It is utilized by a nonprofit to hold community events, backpack stuffing events, things of that nature to help the kids. We went to a public meeting out there a couple years ago now and met with the residents and you learned a lot about the different functions they have at the community center. They've talked to us and requested that this be transferred over to them since they are the only ones utilizing the center. We don't use it for anything else. It made sense to go ahead and donate the property to the community.
Okay, all right.
And we're totally convinced that's the best, I mean, there's not a chance that it falls into disrepair.
No.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is, because having been out there a few times, and we were there when we had a community meeting, the concern would be, are they going to be able to handle the ongoing maintenance of that building? It is old. They do a lot of great things there. It's a very small, tight-knit community, but it is a very old building. For us to upgrade it would be a pretty substantial investment. Soon after we had our meeting, that was the year that I think, was it Hurricane Milton? Okay, and we used that site for sandbags. Would we reserve any type of interest so that we could use it for that purpose, or they would be obligated to allow us to use it for that purpose? Or once it's gone, it's gone. So I know that a lot of people came there to get sand and sandbags.
And we would still work with the community to make sure that was still available for a sandbag distribution site for that area. We do have other locations that we use, such as churches in the past. So that would be nothing out of the ordinary, that we would work with the community and get whatever agreements in place are necessary to make sure that the sandbag distribution site is still available.
Yeah, I know when I was there, I thought to myself that, if this continued to be a county building, that we were going to need to put some money into it. Versus if we turn it over to the community, they can make a decision. Do they want to upgrade it? Do they want to just be able to maintain it enough to continue to use it? But it would definitely require additional public funds if we're going to hold on to it. So that's certainly, I think, a consideration when you decide whether to surplus property or not. But we have a speaker card. David, did you want to speak on this one?
Again, David Williamson. Yeah, my issue is, so yes, it's a county-owned building, property. There's got to be a value to it. It's nothing from me personally against the organization that you're taking into consideration, but more so, was anybody else offered it? Was it offered to another organization that could help this county? Was it publicized that if we were just going to give this or deed this property over to them? Again, there's value in it. There's plenty of other things in this county that we obviously need money for. So, I mean, I understand the building's old and it probably needs some renovations, but there's still value to that property. So again, if it's offered to other organizations that may be able to do good, or as you guys were stating, are you going to reserve where we could use it for storms or use it for, community meetings or, but to just deed it to one organization because we're not using it at the moment just doesn't seem right. I think everybody countywide should be offered the opportunity for it.
All right, thank you.
I've got just one question. If you don't know, it's fine, because it's an obscure one, but how did we come into existence of did we build it once upon a time on this piece of land, and then okay, sorry, if you don't know the answer, I know it's
Right, so it was owned and operated by a volunteer fire department. When they dissolved via statute, it came to us. So I don't believe we had any money invested in it.
So it reverted, it came to us, but the county didn't purchase it, the county didn't build it. It, reverted in a reverter clause.
So we're really kind of just going back to where it was.
Yeah, it's like no net.
Correct. It was essentially a building used by a community volunteer fire department, reverted to us when they dissolved. We have never used it for any county purpose. I believe this entity has used it for a long time. Their letter, when they requested the donation, they did specifically state that they understand and agree that they will allow the county to continue to utilize it as a sandbag distribution site as needed in support of community safety events. So they've acknowledged that.
Maybe before we actually, since there's no super big urgency here, maybe before we actually make a decision on it, we should consider having an actual agreement in place so that we could have some of those things in there. And maybe a reverter clause, should it cease to be used for the purposes that this nonprofit is used. The nonprofit is a community-based organization. It's not just like a nonprofit that came in and said, let me use this building. It is basically that, that immediate surrounding community's nonprofit that they just use to, was mentioned before, give out backpacks during, when school's starting up and hold programs for the community. Youth events. When we went, we actually went in conjunction with the sheriff, and one of the main things we were addressing was issues related to crime and substance abuse in the area. Anyway, but I think I would feel more comfortable with maybe an agreement that addresses, or the deed itself with a reverter clause that states under which circumstances the property would come back to the county. Is that doable?
So we can do that, or if you wanted to approve it today, you could approve it with the addition that we add a reverter clause and that they will continue to allow it to be used as a sandbag location site, and we can put that in the deed before the deed is executed.
Okay.
Either way.
I move to approve it, including the reverter clause as just described.
I guess I'll second for discussion because is there anything else that you want to see in there? I mean, I know the area pretty well, not as well as perhaps you do, but is there anything else that you want to see in the agreement versus, tabling it versus letting staff run with it from here?
I just would like to know that it's being used to serve the community, that it's being used for actual service to the community, not by an entity that, they could have a whole variety of purposes that are nonprofit purposes, and then it doesn't serve the immediate community. So that would be one of my concerns, is that there be some type of an agreement or a designation of what's considered to be, immediate services to that, or services to that immediate community.
Yeah, public benefit.
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe tabling then. So I'll withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Is everybody
And I-
okay with that? And we'll bring it back with some more specificity?
In there.
Yeah.
Okay. We should bring back a few pictures, too.
Well, I'd like to see what the county's, and one of my concerns is I would like to see what the county's going to do if the nonprofit defaults. So, what's the back portion of it?
Reverter.
Yeah, what's the reverter, so.
Okay, all right. So we have consensus on that.
Did you need a
Do
motion?
we need a motion to table this till next meeting or something? No? Okay.
Okay, all right, so we've already approved the other agenda items on consent. We'd be moving then to the annexation report, and I was going to ask if we could move up the discussion on tab 38 regarding Wolf Branch Road, because I have two property owners that are here that were affected and continue to be affected by that situation. And I had hoped that we could have our discussion and then they would be able to leave the meeting. So on tab 38, we've got some slides, and Mr. Timberlake is here. And I know I've got Jordan is here, and she's familiar with this, and can point out some of the key locations. You can see, I mean, I don't think we can back out from this particular map, but the Dewars Nursery, that is the nursery that is up on Britt Road, where it says up on that left-hand corner nursery. That's the retention pond that's on the southeast corner. And where you see the contours go down, and there's an arrow, yeah. That's where the road blew out, in that area. So I just kind of wanted to preface the discussion first with sort of my reasoning for bringing this before us. When we had the last major storm, Milton, the road was undermined, and the county spent about $300,000 putting that road back together. At that time, it was clear from doing investigations and looking on the ground and so forth, that pond had substantial amounts of water had come from that pond and from that nursery on Britt Road, and that nursery has been expanded over the course of several years. We also had an extensive, and it was soon after, I think, Commissioner Morris and Commissioner Sabatini had come on the commission, we had an extensive study done by Devo, where we had a lot of complaints. People thought that Timberwalk, the subdivision at the corner of Wolf Branch and Round Lake, had caused all of the flooding to occur. And so he did this big study, and he was able to ascertain basically not just the volume, but the velocity of the water that was coming off of that nursery had been the origin of most of the drainage issues and the flooding and the flash flooding, and had undermined Wolf Branch. So here we are, a year later, and we're rebuilding Wolf Branch again. And we're rebuilding it better, but we're spending twice as much money this time. And the concern is that if that nursery continues to expand, and they don't draw down that pond or keep that pond low enough to be able to stage water and to allow and to have a structure that would allow the water to flow out evenly and not just burst out of there, that even what we're doing now, you may need even a bigger improvement. And that's just me speaking from, what I think is common sense, that yes, they're trying to deal with the water that's there now. What happens if it gets worse? So in the course of this Milton and this last storm, we had property owners, residents who were in their homes, and they had substantial damage from flooding. And not only was it an issue of property damage, but it was a real sincere concern over safety. So what I wanted to discuss today, and I'm going to ask Mr. Timberlake to come up and do a presentation and tell you kind of his perspective, having lived there a long time and lived through this and seen the changes himself. But then I want to talk about the possibility of, does the county have an avenue for legal action against Dewar's Nursery to require them to do more to prevent public infrastructure from being damaged and to protect people and their homes from being damaged or potentially their life threatened. So, Mr. Timberlake, I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah, I'm Jim Timberlake. I live at 32101 Timberlake Drive in Mount Dora. And I have lived there since about 1987. And so I have a little, perhaps a little more insight. First thing I would say is I'm getting ready to be 65, and my home is a big part of my retirement. And I don't need all this in the middle of my short-term 2-year plans, but I'm so thankful that I'm able to come and tell you at least what I know and what I think. And I'll give my disclaimer. You can fact check me. This is all my opinions and the information that I've personally seen and experienced. So I can't read my notes. This is an unprecedented event. That's what we keep hearing. Milton was 1,000 year. October 26 was 2,000 years. I don't think it's an unprecedented event that's 1,000 or 2,000 years old, because I don't think it's ever happened before. And I have a couple slides that I want to show you that I think I can prove my point. So in 1985, there was no nursery there. It's kind of a blurry photo. That's the best that Google Earth had. But what I try to fly at 35,000 feet. I've been all over that property for years. There's no gullies. There's no washouts. There's no ravines. There isn't anything that tells me that there's been any kind of heavy water flow across those properties for any length of time. In fact, when it started was actually about 1995 or so. I've got another slide there where you begin to see Balcomb's Nursery starts going into business, and that can be seen there on the 1995 image from Google Earth. Along about that same time, we had some inordinate amount of watershed flow across our properties. Same lots were affected then, but it wasn't anything like what we've experienced. At most 20 to 30 feet across, maybe 1.5 feet deep, 18 inches deep. And at that time, my neighbor to the north, where Joey Benitez lives, went to the county and talked with some folks. And following that event, there were some ponds put in on Balcomb's Nursery. But if you can see, if you can try to strain your eyes a little bit, you can see Balcomb's Nursery is very small compared to what's there now. So then in 1999, the 3 retention ponds were put in, and there were no further flood events that occurred after that. We even went through the 2004-2005 hurricane season. I had 21 trees down on my property from Hurricane Charlie. Did not have any water issues. We had a lot of rain, but we did not have any kind of flooding that took place from even those hurricanes. I understand that that largest pond that Chairwoman Campion spoke of is 5 acres. I measured it on Google Maps. It's about 5 acres, and I was told it was about 9 feet deep. That's a lot of water. This is like taking a vision test at the DMV. The ponds are always full. The pumps were put in last year that need, it's a 10-inch line. I'm an old engineer, but 10-inch line on a pump that big, on a pond that big, it needs a lot of advance notice to pump that thing down to where it's at a low level. Potentially for a hurricane scenario, it could be helpful, but in what went on the 26th, there isn't any hope for that to operate. So Balcomb's Nursery property and then the Jack Matchey estate, they're next to me, sold around 2008-9. It became a planned unit development with some custom homes and some 2-story quadruplexes on the Balcomb property. And at that time, the jurisdiction over permitting and those kind of things went to City of Mount Dora. So everything was good, and then we had a turn down in the housing market in 9, 10, 11, and that project kind of faded away, and then the property got purchased by Doers somewhere in there. So the nursery site in 2022. Let's see. Would it be possible for me to move over there?
Yeah, and I can read that for you. Your retention ponds appear to remain extensively the same, even though the nursery ground cover has grown substantially, and that was 2022.
Correct. So
Can you pick them up from there? You want to sit? You could sit there. Is that okay? Will that pick them up?
So you can see that the size of the nursery has grown. That sandy area to the north of the property up by that natural pond, that's all in ground cover now, and it butts up to the properties to the north that come in from Horse Ranch Road, and then of course all the tracks along Timberlake Drive butt up to that property. So during Milton, 2024 flood event occurs. The county builds Wolf Branch Road and spends significant dollars purchasing damaged homes and land and engineering solutions and so on and so forth. And then the 26th, a much bigger flood occurs. Joey Benitez's home is lost. I've got significant damage on my property. And Joey will speak to his situation. His is much more grave than mine, but I've got some pictures to show some of both. Mine has to do with fence, and I've got a giant sand delta now across my property. And then my 40-foot long bridge that's my driveway was lifted up and twisted and torn up. Significant erosion has occurred, and then there's potential contaminants that come from this site because all of that water just washes down. So these are a few pictures. The top one is my house, and then you can see all of that sand that's there down below beside the creek on the west side of the creek. The east side of the creek. That sand is over 1.5 feet thick. The bottom left picture is tract 1, Ron Anderson's home. That's actually his shed that traveled about 200 feet. You can see the water stain all up, how wide it was when it came through there. The top right is more of the delta that's across my property now. And then the bottom right picture is Joey Benitez's camper that was swallowed up in a giant hole that was eroded away. And there on the right of that picture is his home that is now condemned. Next. So this is a video that I took, and I want to show it's midnight, and the water rushing is incredible. It's about 80 feet across, and this video doesn't do it justice, but the roar from this water flow was like Niagara Falls. We could hear it inside our block home 300 feet away. I hope that the engineering we've done on Wolf Branch Road is adequate, because till you've seen this, you cannot imagine how much water is flowing off of that nursery property. At the deepest point on my property, it was 6 feet deep and 80 feet across. So that's a short clip. You can skip to the next slide. And then this is another video. And you can see how wide it was there. That's all wash. That's the next morning, about 6:30 in the morning. There's my bridge that's had the tail end washed off of it and uplifted. And again, at this point right here, it was well over 80 feet across. And then coming on up, when I turn here in a minute, you'll be able to see the delta, all the sand that has washed up. And then the video after this, when this one's finished, you'll see where all that sand came from. So it's out in the open here, but as it goes back in past those banana trees and palm trees and up into the natural woods, the sand gets even deeper because the vegetation held it. And at my north property line, my 4-board fence is actually 3 feet deep of sand. I lost 3 large trees because their roots were literally undermined and washed out. That's the live oak there. And since this was taken, there's a laurel oak that fell over. So this is Joey Benitez's backyard. That ravine is where all the sand has come from. You can't see down through this heavily vegetative area, but that's the fence. And at the creek, my fence, you can see how it's all mangled up, is got 3 feet of sand around it. And this one's just about over. You can go to the next slide. So that was, that, speaking to all that sand that came in. So the next slide is actually a video that, from an interview that Channel 6 did with Joey Benitez.
Out by relentless flooding, a canyon remains in this Mount Dora yard. A 1,000-year storm hit Lake County, but some neighborhoods got hit harder than others. Wolf Branch Road is one of the spots damaged. It's a major artery here in Mount Dora. I'm News 6 investigator Erica Bergoglio, and neighbors, especially those who live along Timberlake, are wondering why this happened again.
You can see it ripped out the plumbing, the AC. It's just all gone.
Jose Benitez's home is on the verge of collapse.
To be honest with you, I don't know how it's still standing.
Flash floods hit his Mount Dora home more than 2 weeks ago, the rushing water eviscerating the foundation. Benitez took this video moments before he and his family evacuated.
We started hearing the house making noise, and then that's when we realized the house started falling in.
Now they're living in this camper because their home is condemned. Lake County officials deeming the property unsafe due to erosion. Benitez filed a claim with his homeowner's insurance company, but was denied coverage. So all that water came down, broke through the fence, and then went that way toward your house.
Went that way towards my house.
He says the water then swept down to Wolf Branch Road. Crews are repairing Wolf Branch for the second time. The road was damaged during Hurricane Milton in 2024. Recently, Lake County Commissioner Leslie Campione told my colleague Mike Valenti runoff comes from a nursery on Britt Road.
They were trying to pump their water and create some additional storage, but they could not pump it fast enough.
In this letter dated November 2024, Commissioner Campione wrote to the nursery saying in part, quote, "An inordinate amount of runoff is leaving your property during rain events. It is likely you do not have sufficient stormwater storage or infrastructure, which is causing water quality and quantity problems." Lake County tells me the nursery installed a pump to move water from a retention area on the southeast corner of the property to the north side of the property. The county says the pump is supposed to retain more stormwater and lower the pond before heavy rains, since the pond drains toward Wolf Branch Road and Timberlake Drive, where Benitez lives. Leaders have been bringing up a nursery runoff. I called the nursery and spoke with the operations manager. I know you guys installed a pump to help with runoff. He said the pump has nothing to do with the recent rain event. I also reached out to the St. Johns River Water Management District, which approved the nursery's stormwater upgrades. In a statement, a spokesperson says the nursery's stormwater infrastructure functioned as intended. So where do we go from here? Lake County is doing a study to help with its stormwater management. It also plans to raise Wolf Branch Road and add culverts to help with the runoff. The road is expected to reopen in a few weeks. In Lake County, Erica Bergoglio, News 6. Carved out by relentless flooding, a canyon remains in this Mount Dora yard. A 1,000-year storm hit Lake County.
There we go. Okay, so I just looked at the aerial photos. Oddly enough, Dewar's Nursery is approximately 11 Walmarts. That includes the Walmart building, the roof area, and all the parking area. That's a substantial site for gathering water. Next. So what if the sites were reversed? What if we had a Dewar's Nursery sitting at Eudora Road and 441? All of Sylvan Shores would be flooded. It would be impinging on all those homes on Morningside Drive. It'd be a different scenario, I would think. The fact of the matter is, 11 Walmarts, super Walmarts, that's a huge amount of surface area. Shade cloth becomes clogged with silt and algae and acts like asphalt. Devo, your engineer, said that publicly in the meeting. There isn't enough retention pond, there isn't a retention pond big enough to handle the runoff from Dewar's Nursery. That was another thing that Devo said. And more culverts under Wolf Branch Road is not the answer. There's just too much water. If you could experience what I experienced at my home The 26th was way worse than Milton. And again, I don't believe this is unprecedented. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I don't think it's ever happened. You can't say it's a 1,000-year rain or a 2,000-year rain. I don't think it's ever happened, or we would be having deeper creeks. My creek is about 6 inches deep. If it was getting this kind of rainfall and watershed for the last 100 years through that valley, through that creek would be deep. It would be 6-8 feet deep. That's not what's been going on there. This is a new problem, and it's because of this nursery in the last decade or so. So I did a little Google AI search. It supports what Debo says. Some types of landscape fabric can impede the flow of air and water into the soil and prevent earthworms from thriving, which can harm soil health over time. Next slide. Another one, poor permeability. Some types of shade cloth, particularly those that are waterproof or woven, may not allow water to pass through quickly enough, clogging over time. The thing that comes to my mind, again, this flying at 35,000 feet, you're putting down a piece of woven material on the ground to prevent nut grass from coming up through it. Nut grass will drive itself up through asphalt. So you're putting down a shade cloth that's going to prevent nut grass from coming up, and you're also going to prevent the roots coming out of the bottom of a flower pot from drilling down into the soil. So you can move them around easy. So if it can do that, I don't see how it can have water pass through it. One of my final conclusions, it doesn't matter to me what St. John's Water says and what their rule is. It's immaterial in what this situation has become. So, and there's more. I asked other questions. Are there other cases where this has taken place? And then it says there's not any specific cases, but that there's plenty of studies that show that this causes a problem. It's increased impervious surface, runoff concentration. So the root cause, shade cloth is intended to prevent nut grass from penetrating it and potted plants from going down through it, yet water can flow freely. I don't think so. What do St. John's permitting documents show regarding which shade cloth product specifically was installed? Was there any specifics to it? Or was it just shade cloth? Or was it ground cloth? What exactly was supposed to be put down there, and was that put down there? Does St. John's do a site inspection or periodic percolation evaluations? Does St. John's require the ag exemption permit to prove compliance over time with empirical data? We don't need a study to know that the problem is Dewar's Nursery. There's a ton of water. The water, it's not like it halfway down Indian Creek it started having a lot of water. It started at the head of this whole mess, and that's at Dewar's Nursery. That's where the problem is. It's not, I received the same rain on my 3-acre pasture. I didn't get the first erosion. I didn't get any wear whatsoever. Not even any sand moved. It soaked in beautifully. Multiple eyewitnesses, which Joey's got some personal accounts of what he saw on the neighboring properties. There's plenty of people that saw the water coming. The pond was designed to spill over onto the east side, onto the 5th lot, which is Jerry Coombs, spill over onto his property. There's so much spillover onto his 5 acres. There's probably 2 acres in the back that is high and dry, but he will never be able to build on it if he wanted to put a barn or a shed or anything. His property is subject to this situation. Timberlake Drive, Wolf Branch Estates, Lake Amos Valley citizens are not being fairly protected by city and county rules and laws because we can't control the fact that St. John's allowed this to take place at this nursery. So there's a lot of costs. Joey's got his home's gone. I've probably got $100,000 worth of cleanup and work to redo my bridge. And then the taxpayers have paid a significant amount of money. And if this doesn't get resolved, it seems like it's going to continue. Here's the deal. I don't care what St. John's rule is, and I don't care what permit they got. I could follow every rule there is and permit and build a house on my 5 acres. And then Joey lives next door to me, and every Thursday, instead of taking my garbage out to the end of the road in my Lake County provided can, I throw it over the fence into Joey's property. I followed every rule there is. I built the home. I'm perfectly permitted, but I'm still impacting his property. No one has the right to damage another person's property, and that's what's going on here. Doesn't matter what St. John's Water Management says. It doesn't matter what their rule is. Nobody has the right to damage another person's property, and that's what's going on. It's damaging Joey's property, my property, Ron Anderson's home, all the people out through the valley, and the citizens of Lake County with the damage that's being done to the infrastructure. This is substantial burden for targeted individuals and taxpayers. The desired outcome really will be for personal property damage and taxpayer infrastructure repair expenses to be reimbursed, and no more flooding. That's really what I want. No more water. Let's fix this problem and stop the water from flowing. So ground covers either got to be changed or removed and the appropriate retention ponds put in place. And so my original statement was that it may never have happened before, and here's why. I don't think that this level of flooding has ever happened at this location. Again, there's no deep gullies, there's no ravines, there's no water flood washouts where you can see where this happens frequently or ever, and for thousands of years. An inordinate level of water flow started when the nurseries began. It wasn't around before then. The only thing that's unprecedented in all of this is the way that Dewar's Nursery is allowed to trample over adjacent landowners' property rights. And Lake County and City of Mount Dora, let's partner up. Let's get this solved for the people of Lake County. At this point, it doesn't matter what the permitting issues were or if they've been abided by. It's really a civil issue at this point, and it needs to be litigated.
Thank you, Mr. Timberlake. I appreciate you putting all of that together. I think it lays out a very compelling case. So Mr. Benitez is here, and I thought it would be helpful if you could give us just a little time to explain your situation. I know this has been a very difficult several weeks for you.
Yes, it has. I really don't know what to say, but it's just, you know, I've worked so hard to buy that piece of property. My grandfather lives 3 parcels up from me, and I remember seeing that parcel when I was a boy, and I said I'd love to buy that parcel one day, and I did. And now it's just, it's all taken away from me. You know, I'm living in a camper, and it's just real tough. I don't think, you know, anything like this should happen. Just asking for help to get the problem fixed, and so this doesn't happen again, so I could rebuild and just get my life back on track. You know, I don't wish this on my worst enemy, what I'm going through right now, and I just hope we could all get together and so this doesn't happen again.
Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
And I had wanted to ask Jordan if she could just answer a couple questions, or if you all have questions, but I think that just trying to get that big picture and understand how this affects the public infrastructure side of things, in addition to what it's doing to our residents.
Did you want me to go through the quick slideshow
This-
just to,
yeah.
this was the account of what we observed the following morning. So the previous slide here shows the aerial. You can see that the first aerial on the left-hand side has the special flood hazard area identified. The aerial on the right has the contours. Those are the 1-foot interval contours. So you can see that there is a lot of topography changes here. There's 33, 34, 35 feet of elevation difference between that Dewars Pond and Wolf Branch. So where those flow paths, if we simplified those contours, it looks like these green lines. So we have a flow path coming off the south side of the nursery and a flow path coming off the east side of the nursery. And where they converge there is close to where we saw some of the worst damage. Then when they converge, then they head due south straight to Wolf Branch. So you guys already gave a really comprehensive account of the event and the damage. Mr. Timberlake's presentation was very good and pretty much showed the damage from every angle. Here we just have the damage shown on the left-hand side of Wolf Branch. On the right-hand side, the bottom right picture, it actually shows where the water line was. So you have the flattened vegetation, you had some vegetative debris. So it really shows the water overtopped the road, both under Wolf Branch and over the top by at least a couple feet. So that's a significant amount of water there. So here on the left-hand side, we got permission from Dewars staff to visit the pond site and take a look at what we think might have happened, what the site actually looked like. At the south side of the pond, where you see that green arrow on the left-hand side, we took a couple pictures. You could see that there was a line of vegetative debris at the top of the berm, and then you have vegetative debris about 2 feet up the fence. So there was, about 2 feet of water at one point leaving that pond, it would appear. On the right side here, it was a location at the east side, the southeast side of that pond. And you could see the scour, you can see the flattened vegetation. And also, not quite shown in this photo, there was container debris from the plants that was stacked up about 3 feet. So we're thinking that there was about 3 feet of water that left the east side of the pond. And we talked about Mr. Benita's property, and that's pretty much where those two flow paths converge. And that is where we saw some of the greatest residential damage. We saw the videos of this property. Here's another view. You could see that the trailer is completely engulfed in this eroded area. And then here's another view looking east. It was about 6 feet deep at its deepest point, that gully there that was created with this erosion. That's what we saw firsthand. We met with the Dewars representatives on site. They became aware of the severity of the event around 10 p.m., where they mobilized, they said about 50 staff members. They got the pumps running, and the pumps ran throughout the night. When we arrived on their site about 10:45, 11 a.m., the pumps were still running, but on that east side, the water level was only about 6 inches from the top of the berm. So despite efforts, just like Mr. Timberlake had said, that pump system is best utilized with an advancing storm, well in advance of a storm event, because it does take, even as large of a pump as it is, it takes time to pump those ponds down.
Is that pond that's lined? Their pond?
I think it is. I'll verify.
Or clay maybe at the bottom, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'll verify. I know that the pond, they told us it was about 6 feet deep in the center.
Mm-hmm.
The sides are a bit tapered, but I can't verify without going into the pond exactly how deep it is, but they said it was about 6 feet deep at its deepest.
Yeah, designing it for wet detention versus the dry, but it's probably wet, so I would, did they want to use it for
They're
irrigation?
using it for irrigation.
Okay, so it is lined then, for more than likely,
Yes.
yeah.
Their intent is to retain water to use for irrigation, but ahead of a storm event, they are pumping from the southeastern pond to a ditch that leads to their northwestern pond. And then that pond outfalls into a large swale that surrounds that natural water body to the north of them.
Okay.
Is there any concern on your part that if there was even more water, a bigger storm, or more, I guess if that structure itself got compromised, that it could just completely sort of breach and open up?
I would never say it's impossible. I'd probably leave that up to our engineering professionals, but I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility. Sometimes, pond structures can get compromised when they are, experience significant overtopping.
Yeah, and the water even goes underneath, too.
Sometimes it acts like a saw and it can open up the side.
So, I appreciate that. Any other questions for Jordan? So, about a year ago, after Milton, I talked to the county attorney's office about consulting with a water expert lawyer about, what do you do in a situation like this? At that point, we reached out to Dewars, and we had already, the day after Milton, we were at Dewars, Fred Snyder and myself, and I think it was Rachel from the county attorney's office. And Water Management District was there, and so they were looking at these other options, this option of pumping out of that pond, and things like that. So, I appreciate the fact that they installed that pump and expended that money and so forth. But the reality is that, we're left on behalf of the taxpayers having to pay to continually clean up this situation, not to mention what our residents are going through with their own property damage and potential for something that could be much worse in loss of life. So I wanted to ask the board if you would support the county attorney's office working with a water lawyer to look at what causes of action that we might have and whether it would be something that we would do in conjunction with the landowners and the affected property owners.
I support that. My question is that I almost feel like we're past that. Have we come to the determination that this is like a nuisance? Do we have this feeling that there's probably something, this is probably a civil wrong?
I think we are leaning that way. But again, I am not a professional in water law. So we would want to bring in somebody to really look at all of this information and then lay it out for us. What causes of action do we have?
Yeah, I support that.
So I guess my comments are absolutely moving forward, interested in moving forward. Before we pull the trigger, I would like to have the consultation on, I don't want to oversimplify this, but it's clearly wrong what they did. And I don't think they intentionally did it, but there was an error with the way this was designed. You can see that, obviously. Doesn't take very much to know that. And so, is it their insurance? Is it them personally? Can we get there without having to file a lawsuit first, is what I'd like to look at. And it sounds like we're not necessarily deciding on to go right into lawsuit right now, but absolutely moving forward and getting some information on that would be, I think, we'd be trying to protect them. So I totally agree with that. The bigger case is, the bigger situation, again, as I'll, being repetitive and not to harp on it too much, but it's super important. We've got to look at the county as a whole, and I think we need more stringent stormwater regulations than St. John's has. Even with the new rule, we should look at that. And it's going to require floodplain protection. which, you know, you're going to have those on the other side come in and say, well, these new rules are affecting my property rights, because it, you know, in cases will reduce development footprints. A lot of people would argue that's a good thing. So I think we also have to, there's some lawsuits we're going to maybe potentially get in, but it's going to require, significant resources, money-wise, I think, to change our codes. And we're doing that, right? Am I understand we're still on track to do that? Is that?
We are. We're going to be talking more about that, but you do, have to
Yeah.
take into account in this situation that you're dealing with an agricultural land use, and the water management district rules are very different for a nursery versus for subdivision development and commercial development. So, that's a consideration I think that has to be looked at. I don't think we have the authority to impose higher regulations on agricultural uses under the Right to Farm Act. I might be wrong, but again, another one of those questions that I think we have to get to the bottom of. Could we have enhanced requirements? And then on top of that, this is in the city of Mount Dora. This nursery was annexed, it was given a PUD for future, for residential development, I guess, when it was originally permitted. But again, that's in the city of Mount Dora. But even if, let's say, the city and the county could have enhanced regulations, could we do so in the case of a nursery? And is that something that we need to be asking the Water Management District to change their rules to address shade cloth differently, in cases of these extreme slopes and contours, that you might not have a wet retention pond that's serving as irrigation in a scenario like this, where when that pond breaches, it floods residential properties. And those are the kind of things that make this unique and complicated, but
Yeah, and it's my understanding with ag, with stormwater, so the use, definitely, we really don't have any authority over that, but with water like this, which is obviously devastating an adjacent property, it's kind of rule of thumb is, no matter what the use is, you're not supposed to let something like this happen. And again, whether maybe it wasn't intentional and the rules just were different, or need to be different in this case, or maybe somebody messed up on the math. I don't hate to be that simplified with it, but I think we need to go there and look to make it much more stricter, especially with floodways and flood paths like this that are historic. Maybe not so much of an issue in places that are high and dry, like in South Lake County, but we still have floodways like this too. So countywide, I think we have to make it much more strict and stringent, and that's going to be an interesting subject. But for moving forward, definitely, I don't know if it's a civil case with them first, and we're supporting them, or how that works, but you're going to come back and give us options on that, it sounds like, right?
Correct. We'll have our outside counsel look at it and give us an idea of what causes of action we might be able to pursue. Keep in mind that our attorney cannot provide legal advice to the residents, but we can certainly share information with them.
Yeah.
If they could give us a rough estimate, if this goes to trial, what it would run, that would be great.
Absolutely. We will ask for that information as well.
Yeah, and if we could at least just, I don't want to hold up the process, but maybe just consider a few different names from firms and lawyers, that way we're not having.
And we typically do that. So if you have recommendations, by all means, let me know who you'd like us to talk with.
So question, though, on what you stated about representing property owners or residents. If we consulted with an attorney and they said, you got a public nuisance situation here, the county would then have the opportunity to decide whether to pursue that, but we would be doing that on behalf of the residents of Lake County, we couldn't join forces in a civil suit, or could?
We would have to have those conversations with whatever attorney we select.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering about a couple of things here. Is, first of all, this is in the city of Mount Dora, right?
No, not this.
Dewar's is.
Dewar's is, but not what you're looking right.
Okay, so are we going to open up Pandora's box here on this one? We've got Donnelly Street that was caused by something, then we've got Eustis caused by something. Commissioner Parks mentioned that South Lake County is high and dry, but I do remember that a whole subdivision was flooded down there. So are we opening up Pandora's box, number one? Number two, should we not have our stormwater department and our water authority department take this over instead of the county attorney? I mean, they're the stormwater people, and then you can lead charge helping them out. So, I mean, we got a great group that does nothing but stormwater. This is obviously stormwater. I think it's a civil case. I am sorry this has happened, but I'm worried about Pandora's box and what happens in the future if something like this happens, I don't know, anywhere.
So I've thought a lot about, what similarities between certain locations versus this. And I think that, one of the things that you have to do in a scenario like this, you really have to distinguish the facts. You have to look at the actual facts of this situation versus others. And there may be other situations where people in Mount Dora, have a cause of action against a entity whose stormwater control structure failed, who then has a cause of action against an engineer or a contractor who built it. But I don't think you should take into account those possibilities. When you're looking at this, you just focus right on these facts. And in these facts, you have a nursery that's producing a tremendous amount of water that has then impacted public infrastructure, causing a lot of damage that the taxpayers have to pick up the bill for, and then you have property owners that have had huge losses. You have to look at, what happened there with nursery regulations, that's one side of it. The other side of it is a civil side where you actually, what you're doing on your property is having an impact downstream. But I get where you're coming from, Commissioner Smith. I just don't think this is an issue where you go, let the engineers work on this and come up with something. You've got to look at whether, do we have in this situation a way to recoup damages for Wolf Branch and make sure that we don't have to build a bridge at Wolf Branch?
I'm thinking that we need to, the property owner this nursery seems to be like he was willing, he installed a pump. Just unfortunately didn't turn the pump on quick enough. So I'm like Commissioner Parks. I think let's see what our avenues are and see if there's an applicable way of getting this taken care of without going through the suit.
So I think it won't be, the next steps won't be driven entirely just by Melanie and her team. I think you're going to work with Jordan and the engineering staff then to get some of those points and maybe even see, it's obvious that there's something here. So, water overtopped a system that was designed, and it's supposed to be designed conservatively, and it overtopped it by not just a little, but quite a large amount. So there's a mess up somewhere, but it's the attorney crafting what kind of the engineer is working to see what kind of a case we have, so to speak, if it's a case. I don't want to use that term, but what our options are, I think, is better, is the next step.
And sometimes when you do initiate a lawsuit, if that's where it goes and that's what the advice of the lawyer is, and the board decides to go in that direction, sometimes it's that process that gets the parties to the table to come up with a solution. And oftentimes you can't get to that discussion of coming up with a settlement or a solution until you actually proceed with what your cause of action is.
Have we gone to Doers and asked them to fix the problem, and they have said no?
Yeah, it's really complicated. They have a vast amount of space, and they know they have a problem. And their solution was to try to pump water out of a pond that always holds water. And with, it's not, that solution isn't adequate.
They're not going to do anything.
There's no,
Okay.
I'd like to know.
As
what
long
the
as we've given
insurance
them the
is on that.
opportunity, that
Yeah.
they have a problem. But they have St. John's behind them.
But that's on the permit side. You can do everything that's right, just like Mr. Timberlake said. You can follow all the rules. But if you still are doing something that impacts your neighbor, those are two different
So we're going to look at it
issues.
civilly, and we're going to be concentrating on Wolf Branch Road as our issue, not the residents' issue. They would have to bring in their own attorneys to represent them.
Yeah, so this issue there, and it's something bad happened and wrong, is affecting us, for the taxpayers, we should get the money back for the damage it caused to the road, and if there's any purchase of land that we need to do, it should.
Or to make sure we don't have to build the road all over again, or build
Yeah.
a $3 million bridge.
But that's the question, and to Commissioner Smith's point, is like, what's the probability of getting the money back on that? And I mean, attorneys are expensive.
I personally
Put
think
it to you.
it's a win if we make sure that the road doesn't wash out again, and we don't have to build a bridge in order to accommodate what they're doing on their property. If what they want to do, if they want to continue to have a nursery, and in order to get this solved, they've got to take part of the nursery and build another pond, and build some concrete control structures that actually separate the water out and create a safer situation, then that could be potentially a solution. So there could be other solutions. And I'm not so much about, we've got to collect X amount of dollars for what we've already repaired. I'm more looking at it like, we don't want to have to do this again, and we don't want to have to build an even more expensive structure when they hold really the solution in their hands, which is more capacity.
And have we approached them with any of these things recently?
I think
I
they've,
think that's what the attorney will do. Attorney will look at it all and then say, go to them and again, try to work with them. Like, here, now that we've studied it, here's where we think you might be liable. If you do this, we're good. We're still trying to work with them. Just bringing in legal expertise, I think, facilitates it. It's almost like a mediation going on at a higher level.
But what I don't want to, I hate to say this, but what I don't want to do is to start just throwing lawsuits at everybody when there's a problem. And in Sean's district, the mobile home park down there, they had a flooding issue.
they always
the
have
next-
had a flooding.
And so now it's like, okay, do we get somebody to sue them?
But who would you sue? I mean, I'm just saying, you've got to separate the facts. You can't just say you're going to go around suing everyone. When the facts show you that you have a cause of action, that's when you actually have this type of discussion. And my hope would be that by moving down this road, if there is a cause of action, that we do sit at the table with Dewars, and we do come up with a solution. But, yeah, I don't think this is a scenario of going around and just suing everybody and anybody because there's problems. I mean,
Isn't this nursery in the city of Mount Dora?
it is.
So why don't we just sue the city of Mount Dora because they're the ones that allowed them to do this?
They don't oversee what the water management district permits, and they don't oversee how they
I can
operate their
guarantee you how
nursery.
this happened was, the staff says, okay, did they get the St. John's water permit? Click, check mark, and then that's it, it moves on.
That's it.
That's how it works. Unless you have a new standard,
That's right.
which we need to do.
I was being
I know
I
you
know,
were.
but that
Yeah.
answer is the answer right there.
Yeah.
That when you run a business, you start, you do site plan, you check the box, I did what the district told me to do, but then if you end up harming other people in the process.
They got a
well,
case, yeah. I mean,
Then it's got to be up to the permitting agency or the people who allowed it to go in, which is the city of Mount Dora. So let's just sue them.
It doesn't work that way, though.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't,
I know, and I think I think we all actually all agreed what to do next, but I think the other concern would be, there's a lot of cases, I think if I'm paraphrasing this correct, is there's a lot of these cases, and unfortunately, that we could get ourselves into, so, but, yeah.
yeah,
I
you have
mean,
to be discerning.
This is
and
a hot
you have to
case. I mean,
be
this is right here, we're
careful.
seeing it, yeah, I know. We got to get those rules changed, though.
Okay, all right, so we have some consensus, and we'll look to the attorney's office to bring us back some options.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, then we're going to jump back over to our annexation report, which is Mike Fitzgerald. And again, Mr. Benitez, Mr. Timberlake, thank you for being here today, and we'll stay in touch with you to let you know what we're doing on our end. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Chairman. Commissioners, good morning. For the record, Mike Fitzgerald, the Office of Planning and Zoning Director. I have an annexation report for the City of Leesburg. Lake County has received a notice that the City of Leesburg is proposing to annex approximately 7.3 acres of land located west of US Highway 27, north of University Avenue. The intent is to develop the property with multi-use office warehouse buildings and other commercial uses in accordance with the City of Leesburg. The current Lake County zoning is agriculture. The proposed city zoning is planned unit development. Current Lake County FLU is urban low, and the proposed FLU is general commercial. Lake County's urban low allows up to 4 dwelling units per acre for residential, but it also offers a variety of uses for commercial and industrial, and that would be in compliance with what the city is proposing to do for a multi-use commercial development. I'm happy to answer questions or.
All right. Commissioner Smith, it's in your district. You okay with, no comments?
No.
Okay. General commercial, basically in what the county has designated as urban low.
Yes, ma'am. The urban low land use provides the opportunity for a variety of uses in Lake County.
So if it were staying in the county, they could come in with commercial and make that zoning request.
Yes,
But
ma'am,
instead,
they
they're annexing into the city.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. They could
It's no
they could
change.
rezone.
Yeah, it
I
was,
had no questions.
all right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, moving ahead then to public hearings. Miranda is here. There's Miranda.
Okay, good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Miranda Lanou, Budget Manager with the Office of Management and Budget. The purpose of today's presentation is to reconcile the fiscal year 2025 final budgeted revenues and expenditures. First, I'll provide a brief background, then a summary of the proposed adjustments. I will then turn it over to the chairman to open the public hearing, and finally, the requested action. At the end of each fiscal year, all of the budgeted revenues and expenditures are reconciled based on actual transactions throughout the year. Budget adjustments are necessary to account for any unanticipated revenues and expenditures. For example, here's a breakdown of the 2025 excess fees that were returned back to the county. Essentially, this is the amount the Constitutional saved over their budgeted expenses. The return of excess fees are recognized as revenue, offsetting the original budgeted expenditures. Other adjustments to general fund come to a total increase of $11,461,484. This includes the adjustment for costs related to the county's response to Hurricane Milton during the fiscal year for approximately $3.9 million, adjustments to interfund transfers, which include a transfer to the risk fund to assist with costs for unanticipated claims, a transfer to the fleet fund to assist with costs for operations, the reallocation of GASB 87 rentals and leases to lease principal and interest for a net zero impact, one-time recognition of capital outlay expense and proceeds of debt for leases commencing during the year per the GASB 87 requirement, also a net zero impact. After all the adjustments recognizing unanticipated revenues and expenditures, we were able to add $1.64 million to operating reserves, which is mostly attributable to interest revenues that came in higher than projections. One of the most significant adjustments is the annual true-up of school impact fees received and distributed that is performed each year and due to GASB 84. This requires the county to recognize the pass-through of school impact fees. Adjustments were also made to the debt service funds to account for the bond refunding completed during the year. And this was approximately $49,280,001. Adjustments were made to the risk fund, recognizing unanticipated revenues and an increase in the transfer from the general fund to assist with unanticipated claims. And finally, various other budget adjustments were made as needed in other funds. This includes reallocations to accounts for the GASB 87 financial statement requirements, an adjustment to gas tax fund of approximately $152,000 for the 9th cent gas tax revenues received and distributed to the cities, and an adjustment to the fleet fund of $166,000 to assist with operational costs. I'll now turn it over to the chairman to open the public hearing.
All right, I'll open the meeting. Do we have anyone online who wishes to speak? Any raised hands? And I don't see any cards. Anybody else here in the audience who wishes to speak on tab 33? All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Do you have questions, or do we have a motion to proceed with the?
I have a question. What's the total amount going to reserves?
It was 1.64 million.
Make a motion that we approve with the addition of taking 10% and putting it towards our road fund.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Moving on to tab 34, Commissioner Morris, this is with regard to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and there are two positions that are being requested for reappointment.
Everything's fine.
Do you want to make that motion?
Sure.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then, moving on to tab 35. I'm on the Elders Affairs Coordinating Council. I would ask for a motion to approve Hugh Gravitt for District 1 and Dell Richards to complete the remaining term on District 5.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Moving on, then, Children's Services Council. This is Commissioner Sabatini's committee he's liaison to. Do we have a motion on these appointments?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on addendum, we have 37 and we have 39. Want to take them in order? I guess we'll take them in order. That makes sense.
37 first.
But you can't leave.
Huh?
Are you going to be gone very long?
No. That's personal.
Okay. I guess we'll find out if you're gone very long. Yeah, I hate to get started without the full board here, but we could take a break. Let's just take about a 5 to 8 minute break. We'll convene no later than 10 minutes from now.
Or we can do 39.
But we shouldn't be doing that. That's his district. Correct?
I'm fine with a quick break.
Yeah, quick break. Okay.
I'm not even
We're going back into session here, and we're picking up on tab 37. This is a proposed development agreement for Astor Riverfront LLC between the county and the owner of this LLC. This has to do with that restaurant that's up on the St. Johns River right before you go over the bridge into Volusia County. It's called Drifters. It's a restaurant that's been there for many, many, many years. And it was renamed recently Drifters. He built a Cheeky Hut, which has an exemption under the Florida statutes when you have one of these Cheeky Huts built that complies with the Florida statutes. And there has been an ongoing dispute. It has not been occupied. It's been there for about 2 years. There's been an ongoing dispute over whether, in fact, it meets the requirements of the Florida statutes for being exempt, and namely that he used metal nails, tie-downs, some concrete footers, and he put a railing around it. So those things potentially make it not exempt, but it's a dispute. And then along the way, as a result of putting the structure up, there became questions of whether it was a far enough distance away from the existing building, what was the capacity, could it meet fire code, and then there were site plan issues, flood elevation, structures that have been put on the property, stormwater management, and so forth. So this has been going on for quite a while, and trying to get this to a resolution. Representative Gentry is proposing legislation that would further define, better define the Cheeky Hut exemption and allow for metal nails, tie-downs, and non-wood enhancements to be used without it losing its Florida statutes exemption. So that's going on concurrently while we're having this discussion. The purpose of this agreement would be to say that we're going to essentially, Melanie, help me here with the terminology, would it be conditional exemption until we get that from the Florida legislature?
Correct. So the document I handed out this morning, we have continued to wordsmith it since the agenda update was published on Friday. So essentially what this revised document does is it explains that there is this exemption for a Cheeky Hut, which means an open-sided wooden hut that does not incorporate non-wood features. The owner's position is that the things that were used make it safer, that they're not really incorporated features of the hut itself. The building official, of course, has a different opinion on that based on the actual wording of the statute. Non-wood is non-wood, which of course would not include your metal hurricane straps and concrete and nails and things like that. So pending a bill being filed to clarify that exemption, what this agreement would do is essentially recognize the hut conditionally as being under the exemption as a Cheeky Hut. The agreement would still require the owner, they still have to get a fire plan, life safety plan approved. They would have to get permits for any electrical, plumbing. They would still have to meet stormwater, flood, anything else that you would have to do other than get a building permit for the hut itself under that conditional recognition of it possibly being exempt. So that's the basis of the changes. We do clarify in here that the owner understands that this is conditional. It's good for 12 months, knowing that sometimes things don't always work their way through the legislative process the first time. We could go into the next session potentially. The owner could come back and ask for one final 12-month extension. If that extension is not granted, or if the legislature does not make these changes that Representative Gentry may be proposing, then the owner is acknowledging that he will come in and fully have the building, the structure permitted, not as a Cheeky, but as
a non-Cheeky.
A non-Cheeky, yes. So those are the changes that we made to this document. And if the board is willing to approve it today, then we'll have the owner sign it. Obviously, he didn't sign it because we are still working on it hot off the press at 8:30.
So he would still have to do his life safety plan and have that approved. He would still have to do his plumbing. He would still have to do his electrical permits. And then in addition, there's a couple pending variances that have to do with the stormwater management and landscaping and so forth. Those would go to the variance board. So if those things are all addressed, then this would allow them to at least begin to use their cheeky hut or non-cheeky hut.
Right, so, but essentially, he still should not be using it for commercial or assembly uses. If he does that, he's doing that at his own risk. We are not authorizing him to.
And that's what this says.
Correct.
That if it were to happen, then we're not on the hook. Okay. So
County has no liability, right? If he uses it.
this agreement says no.
That is what this agreement says.
And just to be clear, this is just because the county is interpreting it one way, the state's interpreting it another way, and we're just letting the state come to a conclusion, right?
So the property owner and the Seminole tribe are interpreting it differently than the county is interpreting it. So we are willing to go with the conditional idea that it meets the owner and the tribe's interpretation pending legislation that would clarify that exemption. And whatever way that goes is what would happen at the end.
Okay.
But before anybody makes a motion, though, I do have a card. Mr. Williamson, did you wish to speak on this matter? Okay. All right, so back to the board.
Voting with the Seminoles on that. Are you okay with that?
I'm 100% okay with that. Yeah. Yeah, I will vote with, I think it's actually there's two tribes that build these. Miccosukee, yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Moving now then to tab 39. This is discussion and direction regarding settlement agreement with Lake County versus H.G. Troon Creek LLC, a DOA case related to Treasure Trove in District 3.
Okay, and I'm going to actually have one of my attorneys come up here, whichever one. Rock, paper, scissors. So I will let them explain to you what the proposal is.
Hi, good morning, Rachel Bartolowitz. The proposal for settlement is to resolve our permit challenge that we filed through our right-of-way use permit process. So the developer would file for a right-of-way utilization permit. They have added some swales along our roadways in this area. This is it's over in Leesburg, so it's along County Road 44 and Treasure Island Road. And there's some improvements that they're making to the drainage that would affect our roads. There's a pipe system that they're upgrading, and the on-site pond is being upgraded to account for a 100-year storm, which is higher than what our code requires. So we were agreeing to settle it, and then we would dismiss the permit challenge that we filed.
So can you repeat that? So the three parts to the proposed settlement are the increased pond size, the swales, and then what was the other one?
There's a pipe system that's
Pipe
being
system,
enhanced.
okay.
Mhm.
All right. Was there plantings or something like that that was also, or am I thinking of something else? Maybe,
I don't believe there was any.
like vegetative plantings? Okay.
There would be all landscaping as required per our current code. So everything else is compliant with code to be reviewed through the right-of-way permit process. But those were some of the things as far as like concessions for some of the concerns that we identified when we filed this permit challenge, that they upgraded based on what was already approved through their St. John's permit.
Okay.
So those are kind of the major upgrades that we were getting concessions from the developer to address some of the drainage concerns.
Okay, so what is the attorney's office opinion on it, on the settlement you're recommending?
We were recommending accepting the settlement. As you're all aware, with litigation, there's a lot of uncertainty. This is something that, if we continued with the challenge, and I know there's been communications with some of the residents. So the residents had filed their own separate challenge to this permit. They voluntarily dismissed that challenge. We filed our challenge to the permit that was issued. Some of the things that are being pointed out by the residents are, there's one issue, which is, was the permit correctly issued based on the current requirements? There's a whole separate issue of, are the current requirements sufficient? So the residents are taking the position that, both of those things are at play, that maybe the St. John's permit requirements need to be adjusted. I know there's been discussion of that in other locations by this board today, but is that something that we would achieve through this instant action? Not necessarily. So as far as what we've filed to address this particular permit, the concerns to our roadways in that immediate area, and some of the concessions we've gotten, the agreement to abide by higher standards than what's currently in our code, I'm recommending, and our office is recommending that we accept this.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have the residents that filed their emails and so forth. I have cards. So I have Ray, Hayden, and then Lisa. I'll just give you the order now. And then Alan, and then Louise, and then Gary.
Good morning. Ray Hayden, 35121 Dennis Road in Leesburg, but we're county residents. First, I want to thank you for this time and attention you've given to Treasure Trove. It means a great deal to all of us who will be negatively impacted by this development. We believe that the county's 120 petition can do something more than address the development. It can help encourage meaningful updates to St. John's stormwater regulations, which are out of step with the real-world conditions our communities are actually facing, as was well demonstrated earlier. We've seen what can happen across Lake County, especially the flooding of Mount Dora and Eustis. We've seen problems at Silver Lake Point. Just today, on the way over here, we see water ripping through the continued development that they're doing there. So you can see there's additional leaks that are happening now, right now, even after all the discussion. Understanding that it has to be completed first, but that's beyond my point here. We've seen problems at the Silver Lake Point where the stormwater is already flowing directly on a private property. It's actually driven there. Treasure Trove is designed to do the same thing. As you are aware, Devo Engineering identified concerns about the reuse-based stormwater systems, and there's also inconsistencies in the hydrology that need addressing. Given that Florida law allows the county tools under Chapter 120 to request stronger standards, while the 120 petition continues to move forward, the county can petition for rulemaking and challenge outdated stormwater policies, which are crystal clear at this point. Please consider using the county's 120 petition as an opportunity to compel St. John's to modernize its stormwater criteria. In fact, that's why we started it in the first place. We need rules to reflect the current rainfall, actual cumulative impacts, and passive systems that work even when pumps fail. These changes would help not only with Treasure Trove, but with every future development in Lake County, and possibly with additional ones that are already currently being problematic today. All right, so we stand in support of the county in any which way we possibly can, and we always stand ready for it to be called up. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Lisa Hayden, 35121 Dennis Road, Leesburg. I just want to introduce to you the people who will be impacted when Treasure Trove, when their stormwater management fails, when there are insufficient ponds over top. And I'll just put this here. And are you able to put this on camera? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so we have, of course, this is Ray and I, and then this is Gary, who's sitting over here. But this is a manufactured home that is a very new home, I would say like a year and a half, maybe 2 years old. Firefighter and nurse, a couple lived there with their child. Here is another manufactured home, a local teacher, and here is a group home for disabled adults. So I just want to, as I scribbled this as I was sitting here today. So this is the firefighter and nurse. They are 70 feet. Treasure Trove is at 80 feet, and as we know, as we've seen along County Road 44, they will bring in a ton of fill. Here is the teacher's manufactured home at 65 feet. Here is the group home at 65 feet, and here's approximately 80 manufactured homes between 65 and 60 feet. Here, that's, for confusion's sake, it is called Treasure Cove. So we know what's going to happen. This, there is the swale, and we do appreciate, we cannot thank the county attorney and the county commission enough for what the attention that they've given to Treasure Trove for the past, I don't know, 3 years, I don't even know. But we know that this swale that terminates somewhere over here in a bubble up is going to just emanate down onto all these vulnerable properties, these manufactured homes and this group home. We also know here that we can't even tell where the termination is for the swale water. So these people here, this firefighter and nurse and this teacher, they are going to be impacted. So what we're impacting is our essential workers and vulnerable neighbors that could all be rendered homeless, just like Mr. Benitez, which is a tragedy. I'd like to share with you just the first-hand witness account by Lake County's Fire Battalion Chief, Jeff Hurst, where he was in waist-deep water, in thigh-deep water, and he was noticing every time he was in these situations, that terrible night where it rained for 15 inches, that he could see in the horizon all the developments that were funneling the water, that were creating these disasters around the Lake County, Mount Dora, and Eustis areas. I believe it is not too much to ask that we say no more ERPs until St. John's has looked at their regulations that are totally failing Lake County. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Alan Chen, 8010 Treasure Island Road, addressing two issues with the Treasure Trove 120 petition. First, I want to discuss the curve numbers. And as you know, curve numbers are used to calculate the runoff volumes, which is in turn used to determine retention pond sizes. What I want to show down here in this table is that there was a soil sample report done in 2024, early 2024, and two hydrology reports generated from that in 2024 and 2025. What you see on the right here is that the curve number used actually increased significantly from 32 to 43, and the description of the woods changed from good condition to fair condition. And then post-development, after it's paved over, they actually decreased the curve number from 81 to 78. And both of these changes help to reduce the retention pond size requirements, and of course it maximizes number of houses. The question is, why did they change? And just for reference, Silver Lake Point also has the same type of Chandler sand, used the curve number of 32. And this is just from the soil study. About 90% of the buildable acreage is Chandler sand, and as you can see, is very well draining soil to 80 inches thick. Now, for the proposed developer solution, as you know, change in post-development runoff flow is a significant contributor to many of the local flooding events in this county. And just in our CR44 area, we've shown multiple times Silver Lake Point runoff crossing onto or across CR44. And in this recent October event, we had about 4.75 inches here. Morningside runoff flowed across CR44 in Silver Lake Springs. And if we take a look at the contour map here, Devo highlighted this northerly flow coming in, but right now it's actually well distributed throughout Treasure Trove, and we actually have some of it going further south down along CR44, but this percolates down into this well-draining soil. The current post-development proposal after paving over is that you have swales that redirects the entire flow into the wetlands. So in more detail here, at the top, you have the swales running along East Treasure Island Ave, and then exiting into the wetland area. And then at the bottom, you have this set of swales running along CR44, going into a culvert, and then bubble up drain that Lisa mentioned, which is right next to the wetlands. So in conclusion, you have incoming flow, as mentioned by Devo, coming outside of Treasure Trove, is entirely redirected into the wetlands from a change in the flow pattern that we currently have. We also have curve number changes that are not explained very well, and both of these changes favor the developer at the expense of the surrounding residents and properties and wetlands. We ask that you please deny this proposal as it fails to address the reason why we fought against this development in the first place, which is concern for the adjacent neighbors and wetlands. Thank you.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here. My name is Louise Chen. I live at 8010.
With the microphone down, Louise.
I live at 8010 Treasure Island Road in the beautiful city of Leesburg, or in unincorporated next to the beautiful Lake Griffin. My concern is for the, like Lisa said, the neighbors, the wetlands, and Lake Griffin. Lake Griffin is impaired right now. It's really, really important that we stop and think about what we're doing to the wetlands and to the lake before it becomes like it was one of the mug farms. Because when we had the mug farms, we were able to remove them, create Emerald Marsh, which really helped to improve it. But now we're adding all this stress onto this. Anyway, that wasn't part of my speech, but okay. Vice Chairman Parks, oops, here's my drawing. Can we switch?
Are you seeing the?
Oh, you can see it, okay, sorry, sorry. Okay, Mr. Parks, or Commissioner Parks recommended this, that we put a 100-foot natural native vegetation around the border. This would help to percolate the water that comes from above, and also it would prevent also going around the wetlands. It would help to filter contaminants and other stuff that goes into the wetlands. That would help them. And then in lieu, this helps protect Lake Griffin. Now on this one, it just shows how this wetland, how this correlates better with the neighbors and with the adjoining wetlands, because this would protect it from the pollutants and stuff that comes from it. This is only 60 homes. It would have a much less impact. This is supposed to be Lake County property. It was zoned for one house for every 5 acres, which would have been fine in keeping with the neighborhood, and it would protect it. I'm just so afraid that the plan that they have now, it's going to come down here, it's going to go across the road, it's going to imperil Treasure Island Road and undercut it, much like what we saw earlier with Wolf Branch Road. Or it could come down here, it could bother Sierra 44 at this juncture down here where you've got water flowing up from Silver Lake Point. And I'm almost out of time, so thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And Gary.
Ray Hayden, I just want to clear up one point about this. Yes, this is one of those Leesburg annexation kind of things, and they understand that there's a severe problem with it. We've been to local meetings recently, and Leesburg is aware of the problems with this particular property. So the other thing is, though, our initial thing is our standing, because that thing's going to directly affect us. We're also at the 70-foot level, and that's going to come down and hit us too. The other thing is that all the other property around there is all county property. So that's why we introduced ourselves with the county and the whole process. 100% of everything else, including us, are county residents, and this Leesburg annexation, which they know is problematic per their own public records, is going to be the impetus for many problems in the flooding from us, as we've seen recently. Thank you very much. Sorry for the extended time.
Gary Custer, 8909 East Treasure Island Avenue. This is the original layout of the Treasure Trove property. As you can see, there's a water retention on the south end, water retention over here, but in between the water retention and the development, there's a natural pond, a sinkhole pond, but the water isn't gonna, how's the water gonna get to their retention pond? They gotta pipe it over there, This one down on the bottom, if you look at the numbers, and another thing, I like all this information around the outside. Gives me something to do. I sit and look at my phone and pan right down on it. There's so much information around the outside that Leesburg was going to be responsible for in the original, Leesburg was going to be responsible for the water retention ponds. Leesburg said, oh no, we're not doing that. So they changed it. This is the part of the settlement right here. If you look, excuse me, every lot on here has an elevation. If you keep going down through here, starts out at 79.7, comes on down to 73 on the bottom end. Down here. And here's the pond and the bubble ups they were talking about. That's right on the property line. But all the water channels into the streets. And the streets all channel right on down here to the bottom pond. Very little of it actually goes to the upper pond, which isn't even on their settlement proposal. They added a ditch along 44 and along East Treasure Island Avenue. That ditch is in the easement of 25 feet, which we argued with them to get a 25-foot easement on it. Supposed to have foliage, trees, everything, a nice easement. Well, if they put that ditch in there, then they got to figure in the water that's going to fall on the road, because ditches are made to take water off the road. There's no water going to come from this development to the ditches that they're offering as water retention. So anyway, that's the problem, that this whole development, this whole thing, the settlement is zero. You gain zero. It's all stuff that's already there. The ditches are simple, but it's not a solution. It's just going to flood the neighborhood, and that's the bottom line on it. You already see what happened in Wolf Branch. On a smaller scale, it'll happen here. Thank you.
All right, bringing it back to the board.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I know you've been working on the settlement here, and I appreciate the presentation on that. It may be an engineering question, but Jeff is here. Okay, so the engineering question would be back to the 100-foot buffer. The settlement was that previous site plan that was just up, so basically this is the same number of units, right? Development proposed.
Jeff Fairhead, Engineering Director. The settlement is the same number of units, yes.
Okay, so from what your, and I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but there's following the rules, which, as I understand, you have looked over with a fine-tooth comb, and they have followed the rules, the current rules for designing. But what, in your professional practice, I mean, is the 100-foot buffer, for instance, this is designed for a 100-year storm, but is that going to help mitigate any potential in the future, something that, goes beyond that level? I mean, what do you think professionally about that?
From a 100-foot buffer, I'm not sure there is a 100-foot buffer.
No, I know they have talked about a 100. There isn't now, I know that.
They could have talked about it. Do buffers would give us additional room to do more water quality. What's happening is that the developer has acknowledged that there's additional stormwater coming from the north. So they've agreed, and they're contending that their existing ditches and pipes will handle the 25-year storm from this additional water that Devo said is coming down here. So what this agreement says is that we will make sure that the swale or pipe system that will divert the off-site runoff around the site. And would a 100-foot buffer help? It would help, but from a computational standpoint, we'd be looking at allowing the 25-year flow to go around that, whether that's in a pipe system or in a swale system. A larger buffer might allow a shallower swale, which then might allow them to put more vegetation and plantings around it.
So Devo looked at the plans, ran the numbers, and it, according to the design criteria, can go around, it'll, at least the 25-year, it'll go
Correct.
around this.
Correct. That's what the swales and the pipes around are to take the off-site flow around it. And they will have to provide us calculations when they do their right-of-way use permit to prove that's happening. One other thing that they're doing is for their on-site, so they said the roads, none of their on-site roads go into that ditch. All the on-site is supposed to go into their ponds. They've agreed to do a pre-post, they're going to do a pre-post of the volume from the 100-year storm event, which is not required under the current Water Management District permit. So they'll have to make sure their existing ponds, if 1 gallon, if 100 gallons go out in pre, then only 100 gallons can go out in post from a volumetric standpoint. They're currently under a rate standpoint of cubic feet per second analysis. So that's another thing that they've added.
And I'm not sure if I asked this before, but in comparison to the new stormwater rule that's effective December 28th, what's the comparison on this?
This is the old rule. So this is based on just the empirical, if you put in a 1 inch of storage to meet your water quality requirements, then that's meets it. The new rule is more of an analysis where you got to kind of do a treatment train approach. So they probably would have to do more under the new analysis. And of course, there is contention that they're using stormwater harvesting or reuse in the ponds to achieve some of their water quality goals, which some people are concerned about the pumps associated with that.
So this settlement is somewhere in between what was originally being permitted by rule versus the new rule,
Right, well,
qualitatively speaking.
right, qualitatively, the pre-posting the 100-year storm probably is just as much as what the new rule would require. I was kind of looking at what they're currently doing, but
Okay, so
pre-posting the
from a
100-year
quality
storm from a volumetric standpoint is a pretty big deal. It kind of depends on how much are they using stormwater harvesting or their irrigation system in order to meet that
Yeah.
requirement.
All right, yeah, I mean, because, obviously that's the conundrum, and I said that the first day you brought this up. The conundrum here is, I mean, especially if they've already got it on the record, engineers back and forth, that it's been designed according to current rule, but we know that it's not necessarily the best thing. I totally agree with you. So it's like, what do we do up here? It's a tough decision.
Because we have reached out to the Water Management District, so it goes back that is it perfect? Is there some small curve number issues? Yes, but in generally, it's designed, it meets the intent of the current St. John's rules, is what it appears like. Now, are those rules appropriate? That's a higher policy decision from a state level.
So based on like the elevation and the contours and so forth that you've seen when you've reviewed this, if we had a 1,000-year storm, would everything just kind of flow to the lowest point, basically like we've seen in other places? It wouldn't really matter because you'd be full, all your ponds would be full, and then everything would just sheet flow.
It would all flow to the lowest point. It would go south, and it would probably overtop. I believe it's Treasure Island Drive. East Treasure Island is to the north, and Treasure Island is to the south. I think there's 1 or 2 small pipes that go under there, which we would want to look at those because it will overtop those and will flow by between people's yards and get to the canal and the wetland that gets out to Lake Griffin. When that huge storm comes, it will probably sheet flow. You probably would not see a catastrophic failure like we did on Wolf Branch because the elevations right at that road they're much it's much more level at that particular crossing, so the velocities might not be as high, but
And explain how this reuse works. This is how they're complying with reuse water for irrigation? They're pumping out of their ponds?
They're doing several things. They have stormwater ponds, which are storing some water. I think they have some stormwater swales, but they are taking the water out of their ponds, and they're taking it to use for irrigation on, I think, some common area. They probably could expand that area that they're irrigating, but that's one of the allowed treatments under the Water Management District. I think we have it's in Florida statutes that they're allowed to do that. And there is some, it's great from a water quality standpoint because you get to use it for irrigation. You don't take it out of the well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when you want the water gone is when it's raining, and then you don't really have a need to irrigate at that particular time. But the goal is that you want to irrigate so that just like at the previous one, that the water is lower when the storm comes, and that you're using that water to irrigate to try to maintain that storage capacity.
But if you weren't taking water out of there and then you had a storm, you'd have a full pond and nowhere for the water to go.
Right, if the water was not being taken out, there would be less storage available in the pond, correct?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Because if it's dry, you're still going to have enough water in there to irrigate off of, I guess.
I think it's a wet pond. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, usually they'll use the linum for.
Okay, all right. So as long as it doesn't evaporate and it's available, then.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, in the agreement, it does that pre-posting the 100-year, and they acknowledge that they have off-site flow coming that they need to treat, which are two things that they didn't have previously.
Uh-huh.
And they are guaranteeing to give us the additional right-of-way for the road. And we also looked at a roundabout up on top that if we ever get funding, that would fit in there on the property that they're donating.
So as far as like how this plays out with the Department of Administrative Hearings, though, it's no different than a regular court case where you go in, you present your case, and then a judge ultimately makes a decision. So if you don't have a settlement, then the one side is going to be asking for the plan the way that it is now without any of the changes that have been negotiated. So back to basically where we started from. And if the county were to lose, then that's how it's built. If we reach a settlement, then we at least get the enhancements that have been agreed upon. So that's the risk. I sense, I understand the residents want us to go for the gusto. Just you have to understand that if you did that, you run the risk of you don't get anything. You get what was approved initially. So that, and then of course, the money involved in taking the case forward. Which, how will that work? Will that be in-house? Will your office, Melanie, be handling that case in front of DOA?
Correct. We are currently handling it in-house. Rachel is handling that for us.
And would there be any kind of expert testimony? And I understand that they were all ready to depose our Jeff. I guess they were ready to depose Jeff and our engineers.
Yes.
Already.
We were scheduled to be in depositions pretty much all day, a couple days this week and next week. They were going to depose Jeff and Devo, so there would be expense associated with paying Devo for that, and then that's for the deposition, so there might be, there was a final hearing scheduled for, I believe, 3 days in December, so the discovery process is ongoing.
Okay.
And you don't have will you have an additional attorney for that, or are you two going to handle, both of you going to?
Right.
Okay,
We're
all right.
handling it in-house.
And that some fees are recovered to the victor, right?
So in this settlement agreement, we state that each party is bearing their own fees. So if we were to proceed, if we were not to accept the settlement, if we were to proceed, there would be a possibility that either side could try to claim fees against the other side. So that was one of the other considerations.
Is that just something that's asked of the DOA hearing officer? That's not a given? It's not like prevailing party?
It's discretionary, though.
Right, it's
Correct.
discretionary. The
And it's
other,
rarely used. It'd have to be totally frivolous litigation, which, to be blunt, the fact that we had some staffers say, hey, no, this is all good, and then we challenge it anyways, they're going to lean into that. That's why I'm probably in favor of the settlement.
Correct. And I imagine those same statements will be made during deposition.
Yeah, that's where the concern is that, that because it meets what the current rules are, that's where you run into a problem.
and there are, of course, assumptions that you make in making these engineering reports and things like that. So, of course, what we point out in our petition is that reasonable minds could differ on the assumptions that went into their design. I certainly don't think we filed anything frivolously or that we would be in danger of being frivolous, but it is just, like you're saying, the judge would be in the position of deciding, and, both sides are basing their assumptions on the facts as they see them. And
So I'm less concerned about the attorney's fees provision. I'm more concerned about sort of the bird in hand is better than, you know, you get nothing versus, but of course, our group of advocates here want us to move forward, and it's like, okay, well, if that were to be the case, then they have to live with the result as well, which is, and it's not just them, it's the other people on the road, it's the public infrastructure and all of that.
And Madam Chair, just to put out there, from the policy perspective, the financial perspective, which is completely within your purview, you kind of have to balance, where do you want to go? If you want a bigger fix, like you've talked about earlier, if you want rural change, do you want to bifurcate your focus on this case and a rural change? I don't believe that we can amend our petition at this point and seek a rule change because we're already set for hearing, we're already in discovery. I'm not sure that the administrative law judge would allow that. So to me, that would be a separate petition. So I think those are the things that you have to balance, along with what you've already brought up, is the potential of, if they're successful on their case, then you don't get these things that they've offered at this point in time. So it's a balancing act for you.
I, for one, would like to go for a rule change as a separate cause of action. I think that this is the time to do that. I think in light of everything that's happened, that's what we need to be asking the district to do, is modify their minimum requirements. Even if the county does more and we have enhanced requirements, I think at a minimum, the Water Management District needs to.
And I think, too, that you probably have a better shot at that rule change when you tie it into the catastrophe of Wolf Branch Road versus a development that you may or may not have issues depending on which engineer you believe. But if you're tying it into Wolf Branch Road, where you've got substantial damages, you've got homeowners that are truly flooded, you know, you can move it along with that same process and have that same conversation with whichever outside counsel we retain for that.
So if they depose our staff, which they're going to do, and they ask staff if they've met our requirements, and staff says yes, how do you argue against that as an attorney? I mean, your own staff saying that they've met the requirements.
One of the things we did when we were sort of evaluating getting this petition filed was we got the third-party Devo Engineering report. Right. So a lot of our material issues of fact that we had to allege in our petition are based on findings that Devo made in his report. So so it kind of goes back to those assumptions that are used in, you know, the developer's design reports, and then Devo's looking at those assumptions differently.
And then going back, if we lose, we pay their attorney's fees, and
We don't know that.
I mean, that's what summary judgment is. We'd have to negotiate that, but we could lose the 100-year swales.
You could lose what you've added in the settlement.
So, from what I'm understanding of all this is, they're currently building to what they agreed upon. However, they agreed to do more than what is required.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Commissioner Campion, you're proposing a rule change, a challenge to the rule change, just broadly speaking as well, right? Which I would.
That may have to be a legislative priority. Why can't we?
No, we can actually do a rule. We can move for a rule change.
Yeah, the
Right.
agency
There's
created
a,
the rule
prov-
without
there,
the legislature.
yeah, you have a better chance of getting a rule change than you do putting it on it as a legislative
I-
priority.
Well, we need to.
The rule change will be statewide or in their region, correct?
Right.
It's the agency's rule, but it's it's statewide. It's a good question.
I mean, for,
statewide, yeah.
yeah, or I guess it could be for the district only.
For the district.
Yeah, it could just
only.
be for St.
18
John's.
counties, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But as far as trying to get a result sooner and actually hone in on a particular, like,
No, I
problem
don't
you're
agree with
facing
that
in the
at all. I think
county?
we need to do a rule change, ask them for a rule change for our county. I agree with that 100%.
Okay, now back to weighing out to settle or to not to settle. And this is a tough one because, I mean, there's just a couple different ways you can look at it too. If you don't, you move forward and it gets built the way that the code is and it fails, then you've made the case that it doesn't work. But that's what, a year or 2, 3 years from now, depending on what storm event makes it fail. If you settle, then you have a chance of maybe getting it better, and you still have a chance of it failing because everybody doesn't think that the settlement really gets you where you need to go. So, you know, I think it's all, I don't know, it's almost like playing poker or playing chess or you know, everybody has different.
We've had our attorneys in these settlement talks for how long? How long have you been?
Couple months?
A couple of months, so, and their recommendation is to go with the settlement, correct? Through your interactions with the developer and what they're wanting to do and how things have played out in your conversations, because we have not talked to the developers or been involved in that.
Yes, sir. I think if I were to look at the most likely outcome if we proceeded all the way to trial, I think there's slightly more of a chance that we get nothing additional than that we win on everything and get everything we're asking for. Because some of the things we were asking for, it's harder to point to a basis in the code. So I think, you know, there's 3 parties. There's us, St. John's, and the developer. The developer and St. John's are kind of aligned on this one. St. John's approved the permit. The developer wants to move forward with the development that's been permitted. So.
And they're willing to go over and above what St. John's is requiring.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you brought up something, though. You said if we want everything we wanted. What is it that we're actually, what would we consider getting everything that we wanted?
So some of the additional concerns were the reuse pond idea, although that's compliant with the current rules. Devo's pretty concerned that they're not going to work the way that they're intended. That's pretty speculative. It's hard to find the basis for challenging a permit on that. There's also raising the elevation of where they're developing. They would lose lots if they did that, and where they have everything elevated is compliant with the rules right now. So.
And then
The buffer as well, there's not a basis for that in the current rules.
And then what about the type of storm, the magnitude of the storm?
Right, the magnitude of the storm, we talked about that a lot. Our code, for some parts of it, and we may need the technical people to step in on this, but some parts of our code talk about 10-year storm. Other parts of it, it has to be 25-year. There's nowhere that we require 100-year, correct? And we were able to get an agreement that 100-year was what we were asking for, what Devo's report was.
And that's what Devo wanted, though.
Right.
Okay. But we will have an expert, Devo, who would testify, and his testimony would be that he believes that a 100-year storm should be the standard. Again, I know this separates, this is different than rulemaking or requesting rulemaking, which that's kind of like him saying this is what we really should have, but in reality, what we have is this. He's testifying, I think what we have in reality is not going to work.
Right, and that's what, is the DOA judge even going to be willing to go there?
And do they ever strike a settlement? Do we know whether DOA would do that, would come up with an in-between, actually?
DOA's, they're like a typical judge. They're going to rule on the merits of the cause of action that you brought forth. They're not going to try to mediate any type of settlement.
Yeah, because that was a question I had, is the familiarity with some of these DOA judges with stormwater rules, and, do you have any experience on that, or, I guess we haven't done this too much, but.
Guys, that's sunshine law.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
I'm just factoring it in,
Typically, DOA is going to assign it to somebody that has some experience in that area, and I think this one we've had before. I think we've had this judge before for other types of cases, but I'd have to look at it.
I personally, you know me, I like to fight, I like to litigate, I like all that. Let's keep going all the way, but I hate to say it, but I feel like the settlement we got is a good step forward, and we just risk losing it entirely. So, I would just go with the settlement on this one, just because of the unique features of this case and what I think a DOA judge is gonna do once they see some of the opinions. And that we're kind of being double teamed by the developer in St. John's. I mean, it really does play a role, so. So I have to be in favor of settlement. I mean, I'm fine if the board wants to go the other way, but I lean towards settlement.
I think, and maybe it's just because all of this stuff happened in my district recently, but I just feel completely burned by state rules and regulations right now. And I'm more inclined just to say, try to fight it out. And if you lose, and everybody understands that they may end up with nothing. But at least it makes the point that the district, you know, we need better rules.
Yeah, so I think if we were to take the settlement, it should be concurrently with it would be the challenge of the rule overall.
That would be a separate action.
I know. I mean, I hate it too, but I think you have to do that. I mean, just because you're gonna take it, you get, as you said, it's a bird in hand versus two in a tree, I guess. So I mean, I understand both sides. It's a terrible spot to be in, but.
If the board's totally down the middle, I might flip, I don't know. Where's everybody else?
I know where these two are. We know where they are.
Where are we?
You want to settle. You're good with the settlement. You got something in hand. You'd rather go with that. We'll make the point on the rule change action. And I mean, I can respect that. I just can't get past the emotional part of this right now. And I'll be the first to admit it.
So can we just talk specifically about the concessions that are being put forth in the settlement? We just don't think they're sufficient at all. We don't think that they're really gonna prevent any kind of harm. I mean, what's in the settlement agreement? They're not significant enough.
It's like the 100-foot buffer, which, I mean, I have, factual data to support that, but it's not in the rule, so I hate it, because, I mean, it should be in the rule in certain circumstances, but what are you gonna do? I mean, they're gonna just say, oh, it's, especially with the staff already on the record and being deposed. I mean, I can just imagine these attorneys, well, you said it's right here, it meets all the criteria. What's wrong with you getting a little bit of this, extra 100, is it 100 year as part of the settlement? Yeah, I mean,
And we got to remember this.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm just a little, because I've, been in a few of these now, especially the last few years. I know how these things tend to go, but.
Just the 25-year storm event is taking the water of the offsite around. We did offer to the developer that would they be willing to do the 100-year storm to divert the storm around, and they said they were not inclined to do that. Our code does say that it's supposed to be a minimum of a 25-year storm, so it doesn't say it has to be the 25-year storm. So if much as I don't want to propose, maybe we ask them if they're willing to go with 100-year for the off-site flow around as an additional compromise, even though they've already said no to that. I don't know, just to.
We also have to remember this is in the city of Leesburg, and this is in the city of Leesburg.
Piece of
but
property.
This piece of property is in the city of Leesburg, and we're doing everything we can to help the residents out there from preventing a catastrophe that could or could not happen. The developer has agreed to do some enhancements that our attorneys had, in their professional opinion, think it's the best course of action. So, and we're going to go with rule changes after this that's not specifically tied to this case. I think would make our rule change argument better, because then we can include the entire county with what's happened over the last 2 years.
Yeah. One other quick question, though, is do you have to have an answer on the settlement today?
So the issue is, we have a DOA hearing set for mid-September, and we have December. The developer and St. John's have agreed to a minor abatement. We were supposed to do depositions this week. So, delaying it I don't know if the judge has ruled on the request to abate yet.
We did get an order granting our request to abate. At that time, we believed, at the time we filed the stipulation, we believed this would be addressed at the meeting in December. So I think there's a date in December that we have to tell them one way or the other and give new availability for a hearing, but DOA does like to move pretty fast.
Back to what Jeff said about, the minimum requirement in the county code. First of all, this was processed through the city of Leesburg, not through the county. We only weighed in when asked to review it, right?
That's correct. This was a annexation report, I believe, that was brought to you, which is when the staff opined if this would have been developed in the county, it would have met our code, but it has to meet Leesburg's code.
Okay, but back to the question of minimum requirements, because that says in our code minimum requirements, does that not give engineers that are reviewing plans in Lake County, for Lake County projects, the ability to say, I think you have to do more in this situation?
So we can bring Jeff up here. I don't know that our code uses the term minimum. I think it uses that you have to meet this requirement, but Jeff can opine on that.
So I guess I'm speaking off of memory, and I believe it said MIN 25-year, and this would all be addressed through our right-of-way use permit when that comes through, which is where all these requirements in here would be potentially addressed.
Can we get, I'm sorry.
I can try to pull up our Appendix A and look.
Yeah, I think that would be, for this discussion, it might be pretty important to get that right now.
And I'm not sure it's critical, but the residents did just tell me that they were going to sell it, but the sale fell through because it was too expensive, or if that enters in. But let me look Appendix A up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, only because if that's the case, then maybe, and if there was a little bit more, if there was another week's worth of time, you could go back and say, could you do the 100-year? And if not, then you have this.
We've asked them that, and they have
Oh, they
said
did
no.
say? Oh, okay,
Yes.
all right.
The 100-year is on-site retention.
Correct. With the exception of the one reference in here for the stormwater pond, they have said no, they will not do more than our code requires.
But our staff's testimony could still be that they think it would be better if you had the 100-year on the off-site flow, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's what I want to see what he says with the code.
I mean, it's one thing, that's what's kind of being suggested, that would be a better scenario, but they're not willing to do that. And if we were the actual reviewer and had come in for county approval, then it's possible that we would have been saying we wanted the 100-year.
I'm fine litigating it. I wasn't delegating my position, I just thought it was just kind of giving my impressions. If you want to litigate, let's go. Sean, you're the deciding vote now.
Well, I don't mind litigating, but I also don't want to divert more resources away from the bigger issue, which is the rule change. I mean, that's super important, and I don't want to you'll get bogged down. I hate it, and I said this when you first brought it up, has it been 6 months now? 6 months ago, that a lot of these don't go, I've been involved in a few. Maybe these two attorneys have been involved more than I have, but they usually don't go your way, but you usually you get a settlement at least when they're following the rules, so to speak, so. That's where I'm at now, but I don't know if Jeff is able to get that cleared up on whether it's a minimum or if it says exactly the 25-year.
Wasn't there was there a motion by,
I didn't make a motion.
Oh, you didn't?
Maybe somebody else did.
No, I haven't made.
No, there wasn't.
no
We were just
motion.
waiting to, is he looking it up right now? Is that what we were waiting for?
Yes.
Yeah. He's just looking up that answer to that question.
No pressure. It does say, it says under section B, it says design store parenthesis minimum. So that's, and then it says for canals, ditches, swales, and culverts for drainage external to the development, it's a 25-year, 24-hour frequency. But in the title of it, if you want to see, it says, it does say minimum.
We need them to switch over.
Don't know.
All right, so the question would be, again, they've said no. They've said no, they're not going to go higher than that, but do
Right,
you,
we've asked them for several other things that they've also said no on.
all right, so do you feel like if you were in front of the DOA judge, that you could say, and we would, what's your confidence level, that it would be, oh, you should do more than that?
I think we need to be very careful about getting into litigation strategy in a public meeting, because I'm sure that they are listening to this. So I would prefer not to put our staff
I understand completely, I'm just
in
trying to
there
make a
to answer
decision.
that question. I think really, I mean, at this point, the decision is, either you would like to settle, take what they've offered, or you would like to go to a hearing and see what DOA judge. The developer, I think, is the conversation, and Rachel can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of the conversation is they need an answer because they're ready to move forward. So whatever they need to design, they need to design. This is what they've offered.
And
So-
the only reason I brought it up was just because it had come up, could it be, I want them to see
there
at least.
discretion or-
I want them to see that, is there discretion? I want them to see that we're trying to every end of the.
Correct, but again, our code doesn't apply.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're in the city. We can do some things as part of a right-of-way utilization permit that they've agreed to do at this point. But as
Right.
far as their stormwater pond, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but their stormwater pond is in the city, and their stormwater pond itself would have to meet city requirements only.
Right, everything internal to the site is within the city and is controlled by the city and through their water management district permit. This would only be related to the right-of-way use permit, which would be external flow, that we would have any control over at all.
In which case, based on that, you would have a certain amount of discretion to say we'd prefer,
For the
based on the external flow.
For the external flow, but then you may lose the 100-year pre-post volume, which I think is a very big concession from
And
their
that's their on-site stormwater pond that
That's
they're
their
agreeing to
on-site
do
stormwater
that.
pond that they'll pre-post the 100-year volume, which is huge,
Significant.
really. It's really a big concession.
Okay, that's a good point. You guys realize that you'd be losing that 100-year on-site storage,
Potentially,
potentially.
if you don't approve this and we're not successful with DOA.
I was just rhetorically. Rhetorical.
Make a motion to accept the settlement agreement.
Second.
In discussion, would you add to that, that it be concurrently, that we're going to accept the settlement, but then file this petition for rulemaking change?
I would like to
I
bring that back
yeah,
to
I
you
think that needs to be
separately,
separate.
so
I think
that,
you've got a consensus, that's where everybody
Okay,
wants
all
to
right, that's
go.
fine. I just,
So-
I'm just trying to put out the whole discussion together.
so to clarify, the motion is to approve the settlement as is? And was there a second? Okay.
There's a second. All right, any further discussion? And the only thing I would throw out would be, I mean, I know they've rejected it before, but the idea that you would try one more time for the 100-year on the offsite.
I'm just worried we're gonna lose the 100-year. I mean, what we have, we're gonna lose if we lose the case. And right now, it's a big them against us.
Right.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
So was that 3-2 or 4-1? 4-1, thank you.
All right, moving ahead to, back to reports, county attorney, county manager.
Just a reminder that we will be closed on Thursday and Friday for the Thanksgiving holidays next week. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Also, one other item for housekeeping purposes, the CRA meeting will immediately follow this meeting. However, we will need a 5-minute break to reset the recording for the CRA meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Sabatini, any report?
No problem. I hope to see everybody at Florida Association of Counties this week. Starts tomorrow and runs the rest of the week. I don't mean Sean always go. You guys gotta get involved.
We're looking to do rulemaking.
We talk so much about policy, rulemaking, legislative stuff, and that's the only forum for it, really. It's all we have, other than our own individual capacities. So hope to see you there.
Commissioner Parks?
Yeah, just 2 quick things, 3 things maybe. Wanted to congratulate or thank all the cities around Lake County that did special Veterans Day presentations and parades and things. Happened to be in one in Claremont. I think they did a great job. I saw commissioners doing various Veterans Day events around the county, and obviously you can't say thank you enough to all our veterans. So I thought it was just it's always a good day because we especially love our veterans in Lake County, and Lake County definitely comes out on that day. So, yeah, we'll be at FAC. Commissioner Sabatini and I will be at FAC. Some interesting proposals, legislative proposals on the table, and then, of course, waiting to see what happens with all the tax questions that are coming. But should have a little bit of insight on that, since some of the legislators will actually be there at the meeting. And other than that, I wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. There's a lot to be thankful for. And to all our team and staff, enjoy your couple days off. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
I've got a couple of things. The first thing is, on Thursday, the 20th at 1 p.m., we're having a Liberty Tree dedication at the Tavares High School. Would love to see everybody come out and see that dedication. It is where we, as a county, plant trees, Liberty trees. The school district has taken on allowing us to put it in their schools because it's a very historical, important, patriotic fact that our students need to learn about the Liberty Tree, where it started from, and it all started from the Stamp Act, but that's a different story. So come on out to the Liberty Tree dedication to Tavares High School, right next to the gymnasium. The second thing is I don't know if I need to bring this up as maybe I'll bring this up under my commissioner's deal, so I won't even mention it right now. And then I got my other thing, so.
It's your special day.
All right.
No report.
No report. I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy a couple days just with family, focusing on what's important to everyone in their personal lives. And I recently was doing a seminar, and I was listening to a speaker who talked about how important it is in order to do a good job at your professional life and your work life. It's critical that you also do an equally good job in your personal life and your family life, and that you can only be your best at your job when you're also taking care of yourself and you're putting your family first. And when you're with them, give them your full attention, which means everybody stay off their phones and don't answer emails or any of that kind of work stuff for a few days, and just focus on your family. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And we're going to just close for 5 minutes while we get set up. Adjourn, I'm sorry. Adjourn for 5, and then 5 minutes we'll be back on for the CRA meeting.
National Day of.
National Day of.
What? Oh, National Day. All right, what is today?
Today is very special, and I forgot my thing I was going to do because I actually had something in mind, but today is National Princess Day. So
Prince or princess?
Princess.
Like princess?
Princess.
Okay.
Like Cinderella
As
and
in
the
our
princess.
granddaughters
So it
and
can't
our
be your day, you're a
daughters and,
queen, so,
yeah.
And that's all I have.
You have several princesses in your
I do have a
family,
couple
yeah.
princes. I'll be
All
sure
right.
to let them know.
All right, we stand adjourned. All right, 5 minutes, everybody. Don't go anywhere, don't go far.
Yes.
something new Jennifer and I are doing.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah, good.
You guys have created more work for yourself?
Well, we're changing instead of the weekly update, we're gonna give you like a monthly, here's the projects we're working on.
Cool. Looks good.
So I'm getting credit for all the JPAs, so
Yeah, look.
it's the parks
Like
list.
50 things.
It's
I
the
have zero.
parks
I have
list.
one.
Get my microphone on here. There we go.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Meg Brew, Director for the Office of Economic Development. This meeting was advertised in accordance with Florida statutes and Lake County Code. We have 2 items on the consent agenda for you today. The first is the recommended approval of your August 26th CRA board meeting minutes. And for the second one is the 2026 CRA board meeting dates, which are February 24th, May 19th, August 25th, and November 17th.
Move approval.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, moving into the regular agenda, the first item I have for you is in regards to WLW Construction's application for a commercial facade grant, improvement grant. WLW Construction proposes to install a monument sign on their property on Sorrento Avenue to replace their existing sign. The packet was found to be complete and sufficient. A copy of their application, supporting documents, and an overview of the commercial facade improvement grant have been included in your agenda packet. Should you choose to approve this application, the estimated fiscal impact is $10,164, which is within and will not exceed the fiscal year 26 CRA budget.
They're only required to get 2 quotes or 3?
There should be 3 in there, sir.
So this would be the first time we had someone actually use the program?
So this will be the second time we
Second.
did. You approved the East Lake Chamber of
Oh,
Commerce's
right.
sign in February, but it's not been completed yet. So we're still waiting on that package from them, but this will be the second. And we actually have 2 for you to look at today, so.
All right. Okay, now, this is we've got to approve it. Do we have
Yes.
a motion? Is anybody going to make the motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
And the second item, final item, is in regard to Bamboo Grove LLC's application for a commercial facade improvement grant. Bamboo Grove LLC proposes to repair and replace damaged siding and repaint their property located on Sorrento Avenue. The commercial facade improvement program disqualifies painting from allowable projects unless the painting is done in conjunction with other major facade improvements such as siding repair or replacement, which is the case here. The application packet was found to be complete and sufficient. A copy of their application, supporting documents, and an overview of the program have been included in your agenda packet. Should you choose to approve this application, the estimated fiscal impact is $9,793.83, which is within and will not exceed the fiscal year 26 CRA budget.
So this is right next to, isn't this right next to the old fire station?
Is there a restaurant in there?
Yeah, yeah. And I was curious, so what are we doing to let businesses know about these grants? Are we doing letters, knocking on doors?
We have had, it's been posted on the website. We've developed a flyer. Some of our concerned citizens have been wonderful about going out and sharing those. And we have had some distributed amongst the community as
Okay,
well.
that's great. All right, do we have a motion for approval?
Move.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And that was all we had for
All right, I do need to ask for public comment. Is there any public comment? Because I didn't ask for that at the very beginning. Anyone have public comment?
Thank you. You're always here. Thank you.
Come on.
You're-
Okay, all
I
right.
love that. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you, and thank you, Meg, for bringing forward these items, and congratulations to all who have been working so hard with the CRA, and it's good to see things happening, positive things happening. All right, well, with that, then we will, any other items for the CRA meeting? All right, then we stand adjourned. Whoa, sorry, things flying everywhere.